Go Figure TV. Revolutionary salute. Revolutionary salute. Like, share, subscribe. Welcome to the House of Revolution. You know I'm your humble host, the Yao Mean of Revolution. And what did we tell y'all? We already knew it. I got some late breaking news. The revolutionaries can use. Bodyguard comes forward, say Tory Lanez is innocent. Will Meg be going to prison? She lied on the stand, y'all. You lied on the stand. Roll up that good dinner, man. Salute big. Let's get right into it.
Now, peeps, it looks like the woman scorned is finally going to see her day. Now, Kelsey's bodyguard has reportedly came forward claiming Kelsey was the one who actually shot Megan Thee Stallion and says he stayed quiet about the assault until now and that he felt guilty that an innocent man was locked away for all them years because of what his client actually did. Y'all check out what he had to say.
Not long ago, Unite the People was approached by a gentleman named Bradley James. Mr. James informed us he was working as the bodyguard and driver for Ms. Kelsey Harris during Mr. Peterson's trial. As such, he was in close proximity and he had privy to conversations she was having with her husband and others. Mr. James informed us he was not under a non-disclosure agreement or a confidentiality agreement and was free to speak with Unite the People, and that he was doing it because his conscience would not let him.
See, this is why they try to whack that
man. Man in prison for something he did not do.
Oh, he sued him for it.
Mr. James informed Unite the People that he was witness to the conversation Ms. Harris had, where she stated she had the gun, she fired it 3 times. Mr. Peterson grabbed her arm and knocked it down, and the gun fired 2 times. In essence, Mr. Peterson never shot anybody, never even touched that gun, never fired the gun. This statement aligns with the statement of the only non-party witness to the case, Mr. Sean Kelly, who at trial testified he saw 2 women fighting, 2 men break up the fight, 1 man grabbed the other one's arm. Gunshots came from the passenger side. Passenger side is where Ms. Harris was sitting. This further iterates.
See, this ain't just about evidence come out, they clear him, he get free. No, he get free. Meg go to jail. She lied on the stand. What's she gonna say? She don't know. But you said so clearly who shot you. You never said you don't know. You had no idea because he would have never went to jail. She made definitive statement on who shot her. If that was a lie, she perjured herself. That's a fact. And Rock Nation ain't going to say her from no perjury.
That Mr. Peterson did not shoot Miss Pete, did not shoot at Miss Pete, or did not assault Miss Pete. It's just another irregularity in a list of irregularities in this case. For example, there were 3 potential suspects in the car that night, and yet the only DNA sample was taken of Mr. Peterson. So unknown DNA was found on the gun. Why wasn't Miss Harris's DNA taken? Or was it taken?
Revolutionary salute to our Queen Kiana Perkins for the donation to the war chest. Revolution is a way of life. Absolutely appreciate the love. Queen, salute to you.
And the information simply never given to the defense. Why wasn't the driver of the car, Mr. Jaquan Smith's DNA taken? Or was it taken? And again, simply not given to
somebody tried to kill him a day ago. They already knew this was coming out. They already knew this was in the works. That make the conspiracy that they sent that hit more prevalent, and we really have to take that serious. These people didn't just say, oh, shoot, they tried to kill him. Let's hold a press conference. This already was in the works, and everybody knew this press conference was going to happen. All of a sudden, somebody tried to kill Tory Lanez. Man, please.
To the defense.
Now, they know good and hell well that Tory didn't do that, man. Megan Thee Stallion knows that Kelsey was guilty of that. They got into an entanglement over Tory, you know what I'm saying? And beef was definitely real. So how they could actually let that man go to prison for over 10 years knowing he ain't do nothing? Only thing he was guilty of was slanging that D to them chicks. And they got in their feelings and tried to get his ass locked up. Now, speaking of locked up, man, let's talk more about Tory Lanez. Now, y'all know I reported on him being stabbed 14 times. Now, man, there's
Revolutionary salute to my brother Wack for the donation to the war chest. Revolution is a way of life. Absolutely appreciate the love, family. Salute to you. Help me keep the lights on.
more information floating around that Tory Lanez allegedly was trying to get at one of the inmates' wives, and that was retaliation.
Now,
Y'all
that's
check
not
out what
true.
they had to say.
He was working to
That is
educate.
not true. They think now, like y'all, I was born that night, but not last night. You understand that? I was born that night, but not last night. Now, right on time, here goes a Mexican blogger want to fill in the details. Oh, no. This wasn't no hatred for blacks, no hits, no reason for race wars, because we heard y'all want to kill all of us. No. We know y'all standing on business. No. Tory Lanez disrespected an inmate's wife at visitation, tried to flirt with her, wanted some other guy's wife, and then disrespected a man about. Man, they think we stupid. They come up with any reason to try to knock that man off.
Educational department, respectful, but he happened to be Tory Lanez's neighbor.
It's a lie.
And at visit, he was flirtatious with his wife, and his wife immediately told her husband,
Bro, let me tell you something. And black person done been locked up with the Mexicans. You understand? Those Mexicans take every fucking thing as a sign of disrespect. Anything is disrespectful to them. Any little thing. So it's a lot of respect that nobody, not even Tory feeling himself, but he ain't gonna be flirting with nobody's wife and visitation. That's such a fucking lie. And that automatic bullshit will go up behind you trying to flirt with somebody's wife, especially one of the Mexican wives or one of the white wives, much less a brother wife. But more than the Mexicans, that's automatic. But they're trying to lie and plan a story to give a reason why they try to knock him off.
they went back, got confrontational, and Tory Lanez was on the tier saying that he was gonna F his wife because she likes black dudes. That's what really happened. And I had to go do some digging. People kept asking me to go look it up, and I made contact with Tehachapi State Prison to finally get the story down, because a lot of people kept saying it was black on black, and he tried to get a black DP'd and all that, and he was paying other people for protection to have other people hidden and trying to be the shot caller on the yard. Then I heard Mexicans did it, and I was like, all right, now let me just get to the bottom of it, since everybody's throwing like 202 stories about it. But that is the information. That is what happened. He was being disrespectful towards his neighbor's wife at visit. He was
Now, if that's true, that's definitely crazy, man. I just really can't foresee, Tory Lanez doing something like that. But I mean, he said he was paying for protection, so he probably felt like he was pretty safe to disrespect a man and another man's wife. Definitely want to get your opinion on that. And also, man, this is just a whole lot, man. Kelsey busting shots at Megan Thee Stallion goddamn toes. Like, that's crazy. She took it to a whole nother level with that, man. Y'all let me know how y'all feel about this. How do y'all feel about Kelsey busting?
You know how many times somebody tried to flirt with somebody's wife at the visitation booth in prison? Never. Come on, bro. I'm not gonna let them type of lies fly while I'm blogging. Hell no, bro. I'm telling you, it's just something that don't happen, especially between the Mexican and the blacks. That's just something that don't happen. You want to start a race war, then try to pull something like that. That man Tory not fucking stupid. They're planning that story to give a reason on why they do.
Cheers.
Everybody say, "Oh, that's so stupid."
Chick Smooth. Appreciate all the coverage that you've been doing. I've been watching your shit for a while.
What's up, everybody? It's your boy BREAD Fox.
We believe the story was coming out that he was an innocent fucking man. The bodyguard went to the attorneys. They was finna hold a press conference like they held today, and the case was gonna be blown wide open, and y'all decided to kill him. Somebody decided to knock him off. That's what we believe. We don't believe, he flirted with somebody's wife, so he had to die. Just before the press conference happened, probably finna exonerate the man. Boy, we ought to really get you for that.
Report from the Chicks Universe, and today there's actually been a groundbreaking update to the Tory Lanez case. Now, for those of you who are not familiar, I'm going to catch you up really, really quick. So, Tory Lanez is actually serving a 10-year prison sentence right now for allegedly, and yes, I said allegedly, even though he was proven guilty, allegedly shooting Meg Thee Stallion in the foot. Now, since the day it happened, Tory has proclaimed his innocence 100%. And the only third-party witness at the scene actually did say in court that he saw the shots coming from the passenger side window, and Tory allegedly was not in the passenger side window, but rather Kelsey was. It was very odd because Kelsey actually was granted immunity during the trial. And when she was asked if she shot Meg Thee Stallion, she actually pleaded the fifth. And on top of that, it was alleged that Kelsey had gunshot residue on her hand, but for some reason they never took her DNA. There's a lot of holes in general in this entire case. And now today, there's been an update from Tory Lanez actual legal team. Sit back and just take a listen.
Not long ago, Unite the People was approached by a gentleman named Bradley James. Mr. James informed us he was working as the bodyguard and driver for Miss Kelsey Harris during Mr. Peterson's trial. As such, he was in close proximity, and he had...
They're not running this on every news station like they ran. They thought he was going to die. They was hoping he died. That's the news. The news is some clout chasing phonies. Oh, they played it on every news station. They need to play this on every news station about him being innocent and the bodyguard coming forward. They say, no, the friends shot her like they knew. This is crazy and disgusting, the bullshit they tried to pull.
He had privy to conversations she was having with her husband and others. Mr. James informed us he was not under a non-disclosure agreement or a confidentiality agreement and was free to speak with Unite the People, and that he was doing it because his conscience would not let him not speak and leave a man in prison for something he did not do. Mr. James informed Unite the People that he was a witness to the conversation Ms. Harris had, where she stated she had the gun, she fired it 3 times, Mr. Peterson grabbed her arm and knocked it down, and the gun fired 2 more times. In essence, Mr. Peterson never shot anybody, never even touched that gun, never fired the gun. This statement aligns with the statement of the only non-party witness to the case, Mr. Sean Kelly, who at trial testified he saw 2 women fighting, 2 men break up the fight, 1 man grabbed the other one's arm. Gunshots came from the passenger side. The passenger side is where Miss Harris was sitting. This further iterates that Mr. Peterson did not shoot Miss Pete, did not shoot at Miss Pete, or did not assault Miss Pete. It's just another irregularity in a list of irregularities in this case. For example, there were 3 potential suspects in the car that night, and yet the only DNA sample was taken of Mr. Peterson, even though unknown DNA was found on the gun. Why wasn't Miss Harris's DNA taken? Or was it taken and the information simply never given to the defense? Why wasn't the driver of the car, Mr. Jaquan Smith's DNA taken? Or was it taken and again, simply not given to the defense?
Now, as you can hear, his legal team just said, Kelsey's bodyguard actually came forward and decided that he needed to tell the truth. It turns out he was never under a non-disclosure agreement, which is absolutely crazy for the way that they were saying Kelsey was talking in front of him. From his own account, Kelsey admitted multiple times to shooting Meg Thee Stallion. In fact, he actually puts the whole story together and says, hey, she shot her 3 times. Tory actually tried to grab the gun from her. The gun then fell and then went off 2 more times, at which time, more than likely, it may or may not have struck Meg. Now, this is a groundbreaking development, and to be 100% honest, Meg Thee Stallion is starting to look extremely horrible. Why? Because she pointed Tory Lanez out and said that she, for a fact, saw Tory Lanez shoot her.
That's why her motherfucking, see that right there, perjury. You lied on the witness stand, you put the innocent man in jail. Now, she would have said her memory was clouded because of drinking and all that. He would have never been convicted, and they knew that. So she made a definitive statement, said, I definitely know that was him. Now that we definitely know you was lying, she got to go to jail for that, bro. Oh, damn, it was 2 years. Oh, damn, she got to go.
And he even said, dance, B-word, dance. If this is a lie, Meg is going to be in a lot of trouble. Why? Because in the court of public opinion, it doesn't really look good when you lie, and she's already been caught lying once. As you guys remember, in that interview with NBC, when they asked her flat out if she had sexual relations with Tory, she said no, she never had sexual relations. And then later on, it came out during a court case that not only did they have sexual relations, they had a sexual relationship. At which point, she then came out and said, oh, it was only like one time. However, we don't even believe that. You can even see them all cozied up in this video.
We had to come kill the streets for 5 minutes.
You know what? I gotta turn up the music. The PD just came right up. Tory, don't get my phone wet.
And in the video, of course, you see Kylie Jenner there, you see her there, you see Tory there. And as we all know, that would be the prelude to what is ended up being an extremely sad night for Tory.
I told all y'all close to a year ago, well, even prior to, Tory didn't shoot that girl. I told y'all, Tory did not shoot that girl. All y'all that was pro this, pro that, now y'all got to pay attention to the bigger play. Y'all heard the lady. See, I didn't know nothing about the security guard coming forward, telling the truth. I knew that the DNA came back 100% not him. And they kept it from him doing trial, and they used the other one. They said it could be, maybe it can't be. It was 3 tests. 2 of them came back 100% not him after the fact. I told y'all Tory to shoot that girl. Then the day after, they go submit the new evidence of the security guard saying he witnessed who pulled the trigger. Tory get hit 14 times. I told y'all Monday, I said somebody sent that at him.
Yeah, that's a fact. Somebody sent that at him. they definitely try to bump him off. And it's definitely tied to him getting released, exonerated, suing the hell out of every motherfucking body. They try to have him killed.
I talk to him too much. His spirit, his soul, his attitude. I'm listening to people come to his door when he on his little iPad talking to me. Everybody helping, every 10 out of 10 people. Hey, Tory, you think I'm gonna make that call? Hey, Tory, thanks, bro, that happened for me. I'm hearing it. You're not gonna get me to believe he just didn't jumped up. He knows appeal date is coming up, and now he tripping. He ain't side with no Crips, with no Bloods. He went in there being Tory Lanez, tending to his business, found a way to help the people on the yard that could never get no help. Nah, man, y'all got to pay this some attention. That lady, she got a point. A day after they submit, that we got the security guard saying he witnessed who fired the gun. We got this dude right here ain't nothing about this dude talking about this other bozo talking about Tory disrespected dude's wife on a visit. Man, get the fuck out of here. That ain't even Tory character. That dude, that social media dude, everybody
trying to tell y'all, I didn't even hear Wack was gonna say that. It's not his character. That's not what people do in visitation. Ain't nobody in visitation trying to holler at people wives, bro. Nobody got time for that. That's automatic bullshit. Nobody. This is not a movie or a game. And especially the blacks not sitting there trying to holler at the Mexican wives. You already know it's going to be a war. It's going to go down. So for them to say that, go to show you they trying to cover up the story and they think that we stupid. And they damn sure guilty as shit putting a hit on that boy now. Now they try to cover it up and lie.
I need to unfollow and block dude. You in violation. You a Norteño telling us what a Sureño did with a brother, with a non-affiliate brother. Come on, bro. Who paid you to do that? Who paid you to do that?
Real talk. Who paid you to tell that lie?
Free Tory.
You definitely lied.
Bro, be home. That which couldn't kill him only made him stronger. Stay tuned.
Now, this news comes absolutely as shocking as it's coming the day after Tory Lanez was actually savagely attacked. And he was stabbed 14 times. So you mean to tell me this man went through all these things for simply trying to stop somebody from shooting somebody, this is really, really, really a tragedy. If this does end up being true, man, I'm not gonna lie to you, Rock Nation, you will crumble. Nah,
they gonna crumble because they fucking did it. They evil as shit and guilty as shit. And they try to whack this man in prison the day before the motherfucking press briefing happened. Ain't that crazy? They rather him just been a dead man. They didn't give a damn. They're like, shit, just kill him, man. We'll deal with his estate. That's crazy. They rather deal with your estate than deal with you. See, they can press your estate. Your estate might settle for less. Tory Lanez living now, he ain't gonna go for it. The family might just say, "Oh, this is good over with."
Okay, here we go.
All right, everybody. First off, my name is Caesar McDowell. I am the CEO and co-founder of Unite the People. We're a nonprofit organization that promotes social justice as well as provides affordable legal services for the underserved community here in the state of California. Today, we want to thank everybody for coming out, all of the press, all of the fans, everyone that's here today. We want to say thank you for coming. Today, we're going to hear some really, really compelling new evidence that you've never heard before. Our legal team will explain all of that to you. We will have updates on Tory Lanez, Mr. Peterson, on how he's doing. It's really sad to see the situation that he's in. And we think it's time, enough is enough. It's time to bring the brother home. So with that, I would like to bring up our lead consultant, Mr. Walter Roberts.
Good morning. We are here today to bring to your attention some information Unite the People believes is exculpatory in Mr. Daystar Peterson's case, professionally known as Tory Lanez. Recently, we've been made aware that a member of the media, Mr. Gianno Caldwell, was working on an op-ed for the New York Post regarding Mr. Peterson's innocence. During his work on that op-ed,
let's stop there. Op-ed, New York Post. They got explosive information finna be breaking in the New York Post about Tory Lanez innocent. So Rock Nation had all of this information. Oh yes, they did, dirty bastard. Somebody over there going down. I'm pretty sure it won't be Jay, but it's gonna be somebody there. Probably say it was the janitor. The janitor did it. So Rock Nation had all that information because it was coming out of New York Post. They finna blow the lid off the goddamn story. Okay, good. That's part of the evidence. They knew.
He became aware of some information in Unite the People's possession regarding a statement that was given to Unite the People by someone with information relevant to that case. The New York Post recently reached out to the prior district attorney, George Gascon, Megan Pete and her representatives, and Kelsey Harris and her representatives. The only party that responded last week was Megan Pete's representatives with a request for more information. A few days later, Mr. Peterson's brutally attacked in his jail cell.
Damn, bro, they move. You see that? That shit crazy. They move fast, man. They move fast. The New York Post sent them letters. Hey, we want to ask y'all questions about this new information we got that's gonna be free in Tory Lanez. Then somebody try to kill him. Ooh, they going down. Lord have mercy. Get that man into protective custody. Tory, we know you a G. Get your ass into protective custody, bro. You finna get out if you can survive.
People represents Daystar Peterson in his appellate process. We filed an appellate brief and a writ of habeas corpus on his behalf. The district attorney's office has already responded. The case is fully briefed. We're just waiting for the appellate court's decision. We were willing to wait for the appellate process to play out. But given that brutal, unprovoked attack, we felt it necessary to come here today to provide you with this information. It is our intention to make a request to the governor to either pardon or commit the sentence of Mr. Peterson, so that when he recovers from this attack, he's not returned to a jail cell, but that he's allowed to go home and recover. Not long ago, Unite the People was approached by a gentleman named Bradley James. Mr. James informed us he was working as the bodyguard and driver for Ms. Kelsey Harris during Mr. Peterson's trial. As such, he was in close proximity and he had privy to conversations she was having with her husband and others. Mr. James informed us he was not under a non-disclosure agreement or a confidentiality agreement and was free to speak with Unite the People, and that he was doing it because his conscience would not let him not speak and leave a man in prison for something he did not do. Mr. James informed Unite the People that he was witness to the conversation Ms. Harris had, where she stated she had the gun, she fired it 3 times, Mr. Peterson grabbed her arm and knocked it down, and the gun fired 2 more times. In essence, Mr. Peterson never shot anybody, never even touched that gun, never fired the gun. This statement aligns with the statement of the only non-party witness to the case, Mr. Sean Kelly, who at trial testified he saw 2 women fighting, 2 men break up the fight, 1 man grabbed the other one's arm. Gunshots came from the passenger side. The passenger side is where Ms. Harris was sitting. This further iterates that Mr. Peterson did not shoot Miss Pete, did not shoot at Miss Pete, or did not assault Miss Pete. It's just another irregularity in a list of irregularities in this case. For example, there were 3 potential suspects in the car that night, and yet the only DNA sample was taken of Mr. Peterson, even though unknown DNA was found on the gun. Why wasn't Miss Harris's DNA?
It was 2 suspects because Meg can't be a suspect for herself.
Why wasn't the driver of the car, Mr. Jaquan Smith's DNA taken? Or was it taken and again, simply not given to the defense? We don't know. It should have been taken. It is Unite the People's understanding, regular LAPD practice at a crime scene like that, anybody who's there, the DNA is taken. Another irregularity. Why, at Ms. Harris's police interview, was a non-lawyer, non-family member record company executive allowed to participate? Highly irregular situation. Normally, we see cases, strangers are not allowed in these things, but it was in this case. All of these things point to the highly irregular nature of his trial and his conviction. It is our contention that he was wrongly convicted. And while we at first were willing to let the process play out, it is our contention now that if he is not pardoned or released promptly, he may never come out. And that would be the ultimate injustice, is that he gets killed in prison for something he did not do. At this time, I'd like to bring up Mr. Gianno Caldwell, the media member who was working on that op-ed for the New York Post. Thank you.
Thank you, Walter. Good morning. Thank you for coming today. My name is Gianno Caldwell. That is spelled Gianno.
I just going to show you too, the boule. Jay-Z, them house niggas over there, man. And a lot of people siding with her, Bum B, Willie. Man, people don't give a damn about no innocent black man being locked up, bro. If it fits their narrative, they don't give a shit. See, they only use that to scam white people a bit. The white man, the white man. If this was a white singer, oh Lord, they would be having us marching night and day. They would, boy, Lord have mercy. Benjamin Crump would be out there. Benjamin Crump would be doing this press conference if Meg was a white singer. You know, this ain't having Miley Cyrus or something fucking about it. Britney Spears. Al Sharpton would be there. NAACP, Congressional Black Coons and shoe shiners. While they not shining shoes, they be out there telling us how this is injustice. America is the same America that had our people in the change. But it's crickets. when it's their boule ass putting innocent black people in, locking them up.
Caldwell, Caldwell. I am the founder of the Caldwell Institute for Public Safety at caldwellinstitute.org. I am also a member of the press for almost a decade now. I've been looking into Daystar Peterson's case for almost 6 months now, professionally known as Tory Lanez. And after reviewing the evidence, the reporting, and the legal analysis, I've come to the conclusion that Tory Lanez was railroaded by the former district attorney, George Gascon. He was also wrongly convicted. I believe if Jesus Christ was Tory Lanez's attorney, George Gascon would do whatever in his power to ensure that Tory Lanez lost that case. Tory Lanez's defense team have alleged the withholding of exculpatory evidence, prosecutorial misconduct, among other issues.
Remember, we just seen the other day, that shocked me for the first time, that Tory Lanez's lawyer quit right during the trial, a week before it was supposed to go on, or something of that nature. Then later on, she came out with a podcast or some type of TV series or show or something, and we seen all of the episodes on her podcast or her TV show, or whatever the fuck she was part of. All of them was Jay-Z songs off of his albums. Every last episode of Tory Lanez's ex-lawyer who quit when he needed her most. Then she pivoted and came out with a project, and every episode was named after a Jay-Z song. That ain't no motherfucking conspiracy. That's a fact. They set that man up.
Among other issues that I was compelled to write an opinion piece for the New York Post. It is true that last week, the New York Post editors reached out to 3 parties, one being George Gascon, Megan Pete's team, and Kelsey Harris. It is also true that Megan's team was the only ones that responded back for that request for comment. I had some glaring questions, and that was the reason for this op-ed. Things didn't make any sense to me, many issues in this case, and I was shocked by the lack of interest from the media to ask very simple questions. There were multiple people with gunshot residue on their hands that night. Why didn't all individuals have the residue tested, their DNA tested on the weapon? That's a legitimate question. According to the prosecution, Tory was excluded from the clip of the gun. And according to Tory's defense team, they said DNA analysis showed that there was a 0.01% chance that Tory touched the actual gun itself. Another piece that stood out to me, the call that the prosecution alleged Tory made confessing to a crime. I listened to that call. I'm sure many of you have as well. I didn't hear a confession.
There wasn't no confession.
But what really shocked me about it is if my best friend was shot maliciously by someone just 2 or 3 hours before, I wouldn't have answered the call, or if I did, I wouldn't calmly have a conversation with the individual of it. And certainly I would ask, why did you shoot my friend? And more importantly, I would never have given you my current location out of fear of you finishing the job. That was something that stood out to me. I also, in my op-ed, discussed Kelsey Harris pleading the Fifth Amendment. She wasn't accused of anything by Megan Pete or the police, and to my knowledge, she wasn't under any investigation. So why plead the Fifth? What also shocked me is the prosecution gave her immunity. For what? What did she do? Is there an allegation of her doing something? I'm not aware of that. Maybe some of you can answer that question today. During the time of trial, George Gascon, just to take you back to where we were at that particular point, he had just barely won a recall attempt. He lost support in many key demographics of voters. Crime was up in Los Angeles County. And this case would have been a silver bullet for him potentially winning. His policies obviously were bad and people were harmed. So that didn't happen, and thank God it didn't happen. At the heart of this injustice is the misuse of gun enhancement charges, a sentencing tool intended for the most dangerous and violent offenders. In Tory Lanez's case, These enhancements were not supported by evidence. But George Gascon, interestingly enough, who is someone who regularly would drop enhancements or not recommend them, chose to provide enhancements to Tory. And in his case, in any given situation, according to legal analysts I've spoken with, he would do 1 or 3 years if he did it without the enhancement. That's interesting. Why did George Gascon choose to pursue these enhancements? You know, there's cases I've been looking through which George Gascon has pursued, many in which he utilized these enhancements. A couple come to mind that I would like to reference here. One, Raymond Danger Gonzalez, a Mexican mafia gang member involved in a premeditated murder of 2 young men in 2017. Despite the brutality of the crime, Gascon didn't recommend enhancements. You premeditated murdered a teenager and another individual, brutal crime. Why would you recommend enhancements, but you would recommend them for Tory? That doesn't make a lot of sense. He also didn't pursue sentencing enhancements for the senseless murder of General Hospital actor Johnny Victor in Los Angeles in 2024. There's a lot of issues with this case. Many, I think, that the media should be pursuing all angles of it. We should not allow there to be unanswered questions. We should pursue open questions without fear or favor to anyone. That includes Mr. Tory Lanez. In his letter from the Birmingham jail, Dr. Martin Luther King wrote, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere.
Cut one channel.
If we take those words seriously, we must act when injustice is allowed to fester in plain sight." I founded the Caldwell Institute for Public Safety after my innocent teenage brother was murdered in Chicago on June 24, 2022. I stand firmly for public safety, for victims' rights, and for holding criminals accountable. But justice also demands that we protect the innocent and stand against politically motivated prosecutions. This is what I believe to happen here. When we imprison the innocent while violent offenders walk free, which is what George Gascon has often done, we undermine the very foundation of our legal system. Mr. Peterson was never given a fair trial, free from bias, political interference, and media-driven pressure. His continued incarceration erodes public trust and diverts focus from the real work of keeping our community safe. Further, while incarcerated, Mr. Peterson was recently stabbed in prison, as many of you know, a tragic incident that underscores the urgency of this situation and the risk to his life while this case remains unaddressed. Governor Newsom, I respectfully urge you to issue a pardon for Daystar Peterson, known as Tory Lanez, in a full and impartial review of his case.
Governor Newsom don't want to do it. And why don't he want to do it? Don't forget they used Meg Thee Stallion during the Democratic campaign. See, they all go down. This is going to be bad for all of them. That's shit. You want to know why? You want to know why it was so easy to get to Tory to almost kill him? Because even the governor hands is fucking dirty. Kamala Harris hands dirty. They knew damn well that man was innocent. Never said a mumbling word while they prance Megan around and try to fool black people into shaking their ass to the fucking polls. Now it's all coming back to hunt their ass. Oh, Newsom, you need to address this. Because you can go down with Kamala and Megan, goddammit.
Case. California must not be a state where justice is driven by headlines instead of evidence. And in the case of George Gascon, that was often the case. So I encourage everyone here to go to caldwellinstitute.org, CALDWELL, Institute, INSTITUTE.org, and sign the petition. This petition asks for the governor to pardon Tory Lanez. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you all for being here. I know there's a lot of noise in the media going on with other stories, but I think that this is one of the most important stories happening right now today regarding our Justice Department. My name is Diana London. I'm the CEO of the Secret Weapon Agency, which is a crisis communication firm. And I'm also the CEO of a company called London Global Strategies. I am a member of the media as well. I'm a commentator on a few networks, and I also serve as an advisor for Giano's Institute and also another company called Promising People that is fighting to reduce the recidivism rate in this country and also to correct our criminal justice laws. As a woman who has worked in Congress on criminal justice reform, I deeply believe in law and order. I've worked alongside law enforcement. I've drafted policy to reduce violent crime. I've seen what accountability should look like. But I also know the legal system without integrity is no justice at all. When we get it wrong, when our courts fail the people they're meant to protect, we don't just ruin lives. We erode trust in the rule of law itself. That's why I'm speaking out today for Daystar Peterson, better known to the world as Tory Lanez. This isn't about fame. It isn't about celebrity. It's about fairness. Tory Lanez doesn't want special treatment. He's demanding equal treatment. And if we Americans still believe in a system where guilty must be proven beyond a reasonable doubt, then we must admit this case raises serious concerns. Because the truth is, Tory Lanez is serving a 10-year sentence for a crime that evidence, which laid out here today, overwhelmingly suggests he did not commit. Let's go back to the night in question, just like Gianna was just talking about in the attorneys. As the attorneys laid out here today, the prosecution failed to produce a single shred of forensic evidence tying Tory to the actual gun. His fingerprints weren't on it. His DNA was later found to be 100% nearly excluded from the gun, as shown in the worksheet that was provided to the defense late on the eve of the actual trial, after making a request for that very document. After trial, looking at this evidence, there is a 0.01% chance Tory's DNA was on the firearm. That's a difficult statistic to equate with the story as told by the prosecution, which may be why this was not present in trial. In fact, there were 3 people that night at the scene who tested positive for gunshot residues. One of those was Kelsey Harris, as Giano mentioned, the assistant to Megan Pete. According to multiple sworn testaments that you've heard today, including one from the bodyguard and driver with Harris on the 2 days of the trial, Harris admitted to firing the weapon during an emotional outburst. Tory intervened to de-escalate, not to harm. It is important to note, the police did not fingerprint anyone else who had gunshot residue on them that night, only Tory. Why? Even more troubling, the investigation itself was a disaster. Bullet fragments disappeared. The gun serial number was sealed, a move that blocked the defense from investigating ownership. Police failed to follow standard procedures. Why? Didn't mark shell casings on the road and didn't test others involved that night with DNA. This wasn't justice. It was a rush to judgment. Worse still, the prosecution knew the case was thin. So what did they do? They tacked on gun enhancements, just like they spoke about. The charges, these gun enhancements are meant for gang shootouts and armed robberies to inflate the charges and turn a flimsy accusation into a decade-long prison sentence. Enhancements are a powerful tool against violent offenders, but using them in a case with no forensic evidence, key testimony, and a defendant with no criminal history, that's very important to point out. He had no criminal history. That's not justice. That's a political stunt. Let's be blunt. This prosecution had everything to do with headlines and very little to do with truth. It was about symbolism, not substance. And that should concern every single one of you here today and in this country. Because when the facts take a back seat to identity, When due process is sacrificed for public spectacle, we all lose. Just yesterday, a Los Angeles court ruled the Menendez brothers, who brutally murdered their parents, are now eligible for parole after serving 35 years. They admitted to the crime. Tory Lanez, who killed no one and has still remained his innocent today, whose case is riddled with inconsistencies and prosecutorial failures, is expected to serve a decade. How is that justice? I've worked in federal criminal justice policy. I helped pass the First Step Act during President Trump's first term. I've spent years focusing on ending recidivism, building rehabilitation pipelines, and protecting the innocent from institutional overreach. I didn't fight for reform just to see the system weaponized against someone because he's famous or inconvenient. And let's be clear. If a high-profile Black man with no prior violence convictions can be railroaded this easily, what hope is it for the everyday American who lacks his resources? Some people may want to dismiss this today as noise. But as a conservative, we are a movement that claims to care about over-criminalization, prosecutorial abuse, and restoring faith in American institutions. Well, here it is, laid bare in front of you. The prosecution manipulated the narrative. They buried key facts. They got the conviction they wanted, but not the truth we all deserve. As Gianno mentioned, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. warned us that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And this case proves it. If we let this stand, if we accept a conviction based on emotion rather than evidence, we abandon the very foundation of our system, that all men are innocent until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. The timing of these events raised disturbing questions to me, and I think they all should to you as well. After over 2 years in prison without incident, Tory was stabbed 14 times just days after a major national news outlet reached out to Megan Pete's team, Kelsey Harris, and former DA George Gascon about a story on new evidence in this case. You don't have to believe in conspiracies to see the pattern. When evidence was about to come to light, Tory was nearly killed. So let's stop pretending this is complicated. Let's stop treating this like some cultural war flashpoint. This is about a man, a father, a son, Daystar Peterson, who has sat in a prison cell for over a year based on a case that wouldn't pass the smell test in any honest courtroom. The prison system can no longer guarantee his safety, and that alone should be grounds for immediate action. But combine that with the overwhelming evidence of a botched investigation, and this becomes not just a legal issue, but a morale emergency. Tory Lanez deserves a new trial. He deserves due process. He deserves a pardon. And if justice still matters in America, he deserves to go home. So what now? What do we do now? We're all here today. We are calling on Governor Gavin Newsom, the California Attorney General, and the public at large to act. If you believe in due process, sign the petition now on the Caldwell Institute page that Gianna Caldwell mentioned at change.org. Let your voice be counted. Let the system know that we see what's happening and we won't stay silent. We can't be a nation that claims to value justice but looks the other way when a man is buried beneath the weight of political motivated prosecution. Dr. King said again, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. This is that threat in modern day time. This is that moment. Daystar Peterson deserves to go home today. And we, the people, have a duty to bring him home. Thank you.
Big Papa.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here. Thank you for coming out and lending your cameras to the world. We appreciate you being here. My name is Sunstar Peterson, well known as the father of Tory Lanez, but his family affectionately knows him as Daystar Peterson. This may seem not even to matter today, but it does to me. The reason why he bears the name Daystar is because I was scheduled to speak in a conference in Washington, D.C. back in the early 2000s. Back in the late 90s. My wife and I stayed in a hotel across the river in Northern Virginia. I was up praying before that conference that I was supposed to speak at that evening. As I paced back and forth in my hotel suite praying, I began to quote the scripture from 2 Peter chapter 1, and it states, "For you will do well to take heed as unto a light shining in a dark place, until the day dawns and the day star arises in your heart." I didn't know whether it was a boy or girl in my late wife's womb, but I heard the Holy Spirit said to me, that is the name of your child. That's why he bears that name today. Now we're standing in the United States of America, land of the free and the home of the brave. I have watched from afar, being a Canadian. I have watched as presidents, innumerable, and other officials place their hand on the Bible and swear a sacred oath to uphold justice, to uphold truth, because that's what justice demands. So before I go any further, based on a courtroom that I stood in 508 days or so ago and heard my son convicted, is a court in the federal reality of things that also holds the Bible higher than judges. And so I'm going to pray a very short prayer before I get started here today. I'm going to pray that in the spirit of when Jesus Christ, the Son of the living God, stood before Pontius Pilate. Pontius said, "Why do you not speak? Do you not know that I have the power to crucify you or to let you go free?" It was only one of the times that Jesus ever spoke. He said, "You would not have power over me unless God Almighty gave it to you today. And I have come to bear witness of the truth." Upon which Pontius Pilate replied, "What is truth?" That question was never answered in Pilate's judgment hall. But I answer it for you today because Jesus Christ himself told us what the truth was. Truth is not a philosophy. It's not an ideology. It's not a doctrine. And it certainly is not a religion. Truth is a person. His name is Jesus Christ, who said, "I am the way, the truth that leads you to life." Father, upon the basis of your word today that this nation was founded upon, I ask that every ear that needs to be opened, including the ear of the governor of the state of California, Gavin Newsom, I'm even asking today that in the midst of Mr. Trump's busy schedule as president of the United States, that this would come into his hearing. And so, Father, I ask you today, by your Spirit, because you're the only reason why my son is yet alive, have your way, and let this be glorifying your name. I thank you for it in Jesus' name. So my name is Sunstar Carlisle Peterson. I come to you today in the capacity of an apostle of Jesus Christ, a word from the first century in our times, it would simply mean ambassador of Christ. So when I stand before you, I don't stand here to speak my own words. I represent a kingdom, and I am under authority to speak only what God allows. First and foremost, I really do want to thank you again, the press corps, and all of you who have vlogs and channels on YouTube or wherever you stream from. Thank you so much for being here. I would like to thank, in fact, all of those who identify with the name Umbrella as One Umbrella. It was actually launched so that my family would not just be the ones benefiting from whatever fame or fortune, but so that all people, always, anywhere that need a shelter could come under that umbrella. That's the reason why it was launched by Daystar's brother initially, who is known as Wolfgang Peterson. So I thank all of you who have always been an encouragement to us, who have stood with us. Those of you standing here today with free Tory t-shirts. Jono, can I have that t-shirt right there, please? Those of you who are wearing these and remembering this person, because I want you to understand that from the beginning of this, I stood as far back as 2021, and I watched where a spin doctor for the NBA, now high-powered attorney out of New York, Alex Spiro, ran a campaign to turn my son into a monster in the eyes of the world. At that point in time, God said to us, there is a time to be silent and there's a time to speak. We chose to be silent. And now we've been silent for way too long. The hour demands that we speak. One of the reasons why I stood silent is because I trusted in God, but I also did not want any blowback to affect my son, who was sitting in the belly of the beast. That's why I chose not to speak at that time. I am his father, and that is the second capacity in which I stand before you today as the spokesperson and mouthpiece for my family. Tory has 7 brothers and sisters. He has 5 brothers. He makes up the 5, I'm sorry, and there are 3 sisters. So today I would like to share a few things with you as well. I want to dispel a few rumors because I've been asked to by my son, Daystar, aka Tory Lanez. Number one, Daystar does not have a drinking problem. He does not have a drinking problem, and that was not the reason why this situation happened. He was not out on the yard, as it was about 6:30 in the morning, and cells were just opened for them to be able to go out to breakfast. On the Thursday prior to this incident, I was called by him, and I was told of the impending threat. And my family and I huddled and did what we always do. We prayed. We get together every single day and we pray. Sometimes it is twice per day. Wherever we are in the world, at a certain time, we're on our phones and we are praying. We pray for him. We pray for you. Because our mandate is not about violence. We're not here for vendetta. We're not here for any of those things. My son, as I stood with him in the hospital room on the first day, my wife being present, said, "Dad, I'm not holding any animosity against this guy. I don't want to take any action against him. Whatever the system does, the system does." But that is his stance, and that is our stance. Might I go a little bit further? Because this will not be the first time I've said this publicly. I bear Megan Thee Stallion no ought at all. In fact, we have prayed for her on many occasions in our times of prayer. So this monster that Alex Spiro tried to create, and when I stood in the courtroom on that day and heard a corrupt prosecutor dismiss the fact that so many people, it was overwhelming the amount of people that sent letters to their office and were called to testify before the courts as they were considering sentence, which had already been decided. And the judge blatantly showed on that day that it really didn't matter what anybody said. It was supposed to be a forum in which it would be decided based on all the extenuating circumstances, etc. But it had already been decided behind closed doors. It's so funny that there is indeed a woman who has made it her life's mission to be the whip in the press or on the vlogs. I'm not even going to call her name right now, but those who know, know. Everything that has to do with Tory Lanez, I believe that she is in some way compensated to spread these narratives.
Who they talking about?
And so before the sentence was read in court, she already knew. That's really interesting to me. She already knew because she had discussed it with others, not knowing that it would come back to us. God is my witness. So moving right along, Daystar did not suffer superficial wounds. He was stabbed 14 times, 5 times in his back, 1 under his left cheekbone. In fact, his jaw was open. He was stabbed twice in the back of his head, and the rest in his torso, arms, and in his chest. It may seem sensational, but thankfully, like Dr. King, it was close to his heart, but did not penetrate. After that, he was being rushed to a facility nearby in a vehicle in which he said, and I quote, "Dad, I thought it was my last. And having made my peace with God, I said, okay, God, is this how it's supposed to end for me?" But God said no. God told him, "Do not give up," in the car, upon which he turned to the attending officers and he said, "You must get me to wherever is the closest place that I can get to. I'm bleeding out here." He didn't even know his lungs had collapsed. All he knows is that he couldn't breathe. He could hardly speak. Upon which the officer turned around and looked at him and said, "Nah, we got to take him. He has to be airlifted." And thankfully, to God be the glory, he was airlifted. I want to report to you that I am very thankful to all of the attending nurses, doctors in that facility. They have done an amazing job in their professional capacity. I would also like to publicly say thank you to the COs, the correctional officers that we have seen around him. In fact, these guys have been nothing but kind to him. The system is one thing, but guess what? There are people who work in the system, and some of them still have hearts. Some of them still have a conscience. So as I'm winding down today, I would like to report to all of you who care about Daystar Peterson, the artist Tory Lanez, around the world. The reports in the hospital is that he is doing remarkably well. I was told yesterday, because they had already taken out the tubes that were draining the fluids from his lungs, they had already taken them out by the time my wife and I got there. And I was told by the nurse, in his particular condition, normally they would have had to leave those tubes in at least a couple more days. But yesterday they took him out because they said he is recovering remarkably. All that is left is for the healing of the wounds. So thank you for all the prayers that have gone up sincerely on behalf of Daystar and my family. We are truly grateful. But this is not over. So I'm reaching out to every prayer warrior around the world who knows what Christ stands for. Please continue to stand with us. As I stated before, Daystar was not drunk on that morning. It was 6:30 in the morning. It was nothing like that. It was an unprovoked attack. I don't want to go into the details of how it went, although I know them, because it is too gory to be describing right now. And so as I close today, whatever has been needed to be said has been said. So as I close, I want to quote you David, the king of Israel, who said, "You lead me beside still waters and you restore my soul. You lead me in the path of righteousness for your name's sake. And even if I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil." One of the officers turned to me yesterday and he said, "You would be so proud of your boy. He has been in here and he has been praying." I got there to the hospital the first day, and typical Daystar, he was entertaining those officers. They were laughing. They were just, and he said, "Dad, it only hurts to laugh." But something broke my heart yesterday. When towards the end of our visit, he said, "Dad, why is it that my life has to go through so many trials? Why? Why do I have to experience this?" And that's the note that I want to close on, to tell you that this person they've been trying to paint as a monster, that they were so scared when all of those testimonies came in. People I did not even know that he had secretly done things for. This is a guy, he would do things and not even tell anybody. And one young lady called me and said, "I was struggling. I was diagnosed bipolar. I was struggling. My children," said, "Your son offered to pay my rent for 1 year while I could recover." The prosecution at the trial, when all of those testimonies came in and said, "Oh my God, you think that we were here to hand out the Nobel Peace Prize?" And that's how he dismissed it. But as I said on the court steps that day, God records all of it. And I know that my son will have justice. I lastly would like to reach out via this medium to say to the governor of the state of California, "Sir, it is in your hand to do something about this. You have the power and the means to examine the evidence that has been presented even to the courts. This is a travesty of justice. And to allow my son to go back into that same situation, a kid that when he went to prison, one of the things he has done so far is through his music to open up the cases of over 467 people through his Hands of God project to help families who can't even pay for justice on behalf of their loved ones." There was a post showed up on YouTube recently, a young man saying, "I'd like to thank Tory Lanez. I would like to thank Unite the People. I'd like to thank all of them for allowing me to be able to be taken off of 4 life sentences." 4. I'm sorry? Plus, like, I don't even understand that kind of math. How do you say to a human being whose lifespan is 70, 80, plus 74 years? 4 life sentences plus 74. This is who Daystar is, not what they've tried to make you think he is. He never stops seeking to help people, even from behind the prison walls. Governor Newsom, you have the power to bring my son home, and for all of the reasons that went before I even ascended this podium. Sir, you are a family man. You also have children. Please take a moment and look at your child and ask yourself what you would be doing if the evidence was so overwhelming. Would you think that this man should be free because he's innocent? I hope you do. And I hope you do what you need to do. God bless you all. Thank you so much for being patient with me.
That was riveting.
All right, next. First, I want to say if you have a loved one that's incarcerated in the state of California,
we're going to get back to the Cassie thing shortly.
Illegally sentenced, contact Unite the People at unitethepeople.org. Give us a call, 888-245-9393, and we may be able to help your loved one. Now what we're going to do, I'm sure we're close to out of time. It's gone too long. All right. If press, if they need any questions. No.
I would like to hear the press questions.
Okay, hold on one second, ma'am. We're going to bring up Mr. Walter Roberts from Unite the People. He can answer a few questions, and then we have to cut this short.
Okay, here we go. We can't hear the questions, but hopefully through the answer, he'll repeat it.
No, we have not. The appellate case and the writ case is fully briefed. We're just waiting the appellate court's decision. So we haven't gone that step yet because it may not be necessary. As I said in my opening, as further illustrated, bringing it to light now was made necessary by the events of this week. So no, we had not previously done that. We will consider doing that, but we're really asking the governor to do something immediately, so that's not really necessary. We have not, no.
All right, next question. TMZ.
You know about any plans to transfer?
We won't know anything about that. That's next.
I actually spoke to Nathan yesterday at the Menendez trial, so he's aware of it, and I suggest all of you tweet him on Twitter or call the office. Also, two things. Sean Hawley connected to Jay-Z with Reasonable Doubt, the show. You guys didn't talk about that at all. She has connections with Jay-Z, obviously, with the show. And then also, Justin Edison, the former bodyguard of Megan Thee Stallion, he was her bodyguard who had access to guns. I posted on Twitter, there's a video showing where he's drunk and he has a gun and he's saying he has lots of guns after she allegedly got shot. So in reference to like the imprints on the gun and where the gun came from, Justin Edison, who actually showed up late to court, he was never talked to, that he's somebody you need to look into. So I don't know, are you guys doing anything with Sean Hawley?
No. We're appellate counsel. We don't have anything to do with the trial. People who handle the trial and all of that, we don't. We're post conviction only.
Maybe it's more of a.
So no, we're not doing any of that.
We call it the attorney general.
Well, we'll have to deal with that later, man. We don't want to cut everybody short. One last question, and that's it. One last question.
You said that it wasn't necessary to have given this new evidence to,
I did not use that word necessary. Well, we were provided with this information after we had already filed all of our briefs. We weren't even aware of Mr. Bradley James. That's why it was a few months ago is when we got it.
All right. Well,
so what just happened with that last part that was asked to Tory? I think that's a very valid question. They basically said, "Yo, Tory," or they're asking Tory's appellate lawyers, and they said, "Yo, bro, well, if y'all have this exculpatory evidence, which is, if you don't know or you didn't listen to the whole press conference, it's the exculpatory evidence that says, yo, the bodyguard of Kelsey Nicole, who was with Kelsey during the trial, heard her, supposedly is the bodyguard / driver, heard her say, yeah, I'm the one who shot the gun. Tory really grabbed my hand. And when he grabbed my hand trying to prevent me from shooting her, it shot 2 more times or 3 more times. So that's the supposed exculpatory evidence. What the reporter asked is, well, if you have this exculpatory evidence, Tory has 2 appeals in that could possibly get him out of jail. One is the appeal or the appeal for the entire case. They've raised objections, or some things weren't raised as objections, and that's becoming a problem. But, you know, through the objections and also these procedural errors and also things that maybe the judge should have ruled differently on, they want to get a new trial. If Tory gets a new trial, keep in mind Tory was out on bond. Tory would be released, most likely, right? He would be released from jail, and it's most likely that a prosecutor in LA wouldn't even try to retry him again. It's not like the YNW Melly case. The YNW Melly case is a double homicide. They're going to retry him 20 times. Okay, they're really going to do that, or they're going to just give him a plea. With the Tory case, the prosecutor, the lead prosecutor, the district attorney is no longer the district attorney. Okay, remember Trump won, a lot of people changed seats. So because it was the last district attorney who really went forward and prosecuted this, if Tory gets a new trial, most likely they won't try to go through that whole process again. Too expensive. You're wasting taxpayers' money, and there's a possibility that Tory could beat it. You probably don't want to do it again. Also, he served some significant time, a year, was it 2 years now? You might just want to be like, yo, we're going to just commute this to whatever. They won't go through a trial, so Tory will just walk free. The second way how he's trying to get out of jail is his second appeal. It's called a writ of habeas corpus. Now, what that is this legal idea that you could submit a writ of habeas corpus to compel the government to tell why someone's freedom or someone's right is taken from them, okay? Which obviously in this situation is his freedom. So it would compel the government saying, okay, despite these things, why is he locked up? Now, what are these things that he submitted in the writ of habeas corpus? For example, hey, y'all didn't test the DNA of other people. Hey, y'all claim there was not more, y'all didn't have more samples for us to do retests with. Y'all didn't do A, B, blah, blah, blah. He has a lot of reasons in his writ of habeas corpus. What the reporter asked is that, well, why, if you claim that this new big evidence is the bodyguard saying A, B, and C, why is that not in the writ of habeas corpus? What they're saying is that we already submitted the writ of habeas corpus, okay? And we're hoping that the governor steps in and pardons him, or some other body affects this situation and we think we submitted a great brief anyway, that we don't have to add it, but they didn't rule out adding it. So they said they felt compelled to bring it to the light because Tory just got stabbed up, and the nearing impending return to that same prison facility that Tory was just attacked at raises significant questions that if maybe there's somebody might try to kill him, right? And they're hoping that this press conference and this revelation of this evidence might take the turn or even knock on the door or the ear of the governor to probably hear it out, or maybe he could say, hey, listen, let's have a reevaluation of this case to do blah, 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 blah. So that's really the whole update. I hope you guys understood it. Sorry for muting a bunch of times. When I'm playing audio, I try to mute myself, okay? I don't keep my mic on all the time, and then I forget to turn it back on. Okay, so we're waiting.
Give us a sense of what exactly happened today in court. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. Hey everybody, this is another Law and Crime legal alert. If you received Depo-Provera birth control shots and were later diagnosed with a brain or spinal tumor called meningioma, you may be eligible for a lawsuit. Morgan & Morgan is investigating claims that patients weren't properly warned about this risk. It's free to check, takes just a few minutes, and you don't pay unless they win. So scan the QR code on screen, click the link below, or head over to forthepeople.com/LCDepo to see if you qualify. Well, the second day of Sean Diddy Combs' blockbuster sex trafficking trial unfolded with definitely gripping and often harrowing testimony from his former girlfriend, Cassandra Ventura, who took the stand as the prosecution's star witness. For nearly 6 hours, she testified. And I'm going to tell you right now what she testified to based on what we were reading in that courtroom. It was something. It wasn't just alleged psychological torment, physical abuse, sexual exploitation at the hands of Sean Combs. Now, remember, she is coming in there, 8.5 months pregnant, coming in after the testimony of 2 other witnesses. There is a lot to get into. We are going to give you a comprehensive breakdown of every major moment from today's proceedings, because as you know, there are no cameras in that courtroom. There is no audio of what happened, but we got the next best thing. We got Law & Crimes reporter Elizabeth Milner, who was inside that courtroom witnessing firsthand everything that happened today. Elizabeth, thank you so much for coming on. I know this has already been an exhausting day, particularly about what you heard in that courtroom. We will get to that. Before we even get into the testimony, real quick, is it just insane out there again? Are we seeing tons of people, reporters, spectators? Just tell us what the scene looks like right now.
The scene honestly kind of mirrored day one, which was opening statements. Day two was really no different. A lot of people trying to get inside that courthouse, a lot of people trying to get inside that courtroom, especially for the big testimony that we were all expecting today. Of course, that being Cassie Ventura taking the stand. And so it was a lot of people just trying to kind of weasel their way in through. I was able to get inside that courtroom really just with a luck and a prayer and also a little connections, which always helps in this case. But really, it's just madness over here at the courthouse. I mean, there's media campouts just extending across the block. A lot of public interest in this case as well, too, from people who just either want to get a glimpse of either Diddy, his family, just be inside that courtroom, just be inside the courthouse, even if they're in the overflow room and able to kind of watch the proceedings that way. But there's definitely a lot of interest in the case, and I don't expect that to die down even throughout this week.
No, and this was expected with Cassandra Ventura taking the stand. Now, before we get to her testimony, the day actually started with finishing up the testimony, the cross-examination of Daniel Phillip. That is that male escort, male performer, I should say, who began his testimony yesterday. Talked about how Diddy allegedly paid him to have sex with Cassandra Ventura, all while Diddy was not only watching, but recording. And this happened to have, apparently happened several times. Again, Combs is charged with racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking, transportation to engage in prostitution. So we're talking about coerced sexual performances. Key witness here. Elizabeth, what came out of cross-examination today of this witness?
Well, the cross-examination was continued by Xavier Donaldson, and it was interesting to kind of see him in action even yesterday as well as today, because he's a little feisty when it came to this particular witness. He was essentially questioning him on, returning to the Gramercy Park Hotel. Why was Diddy sitting in the corner? Why did he notice that specifically? He was asked about what was going on while he and Cassie were having sex. Donaldson asked, did Cassie take the lead? He says, he being Daniel Phillip, said they both did their thing. He was asked, was Cassie drunk? Daniel Phillip responded no. Was Cassie high? Daniel Phillip responded no. Did Cassie pay him or pay for a hotel? Daniel Phillip responded saying he just didn't know. They were talking about the alleged assault that had happened at Cassie's apartment, something that Cassie herself had even testified about as well too. And so essentially a lot of these questions back and forth were just pretty much to kind of get clarity. There were some points in the cross-examination I was kind of like, where is this going? But maybe from the defense's perspective, they were essentially trying to make that argument that Cassie she was coherent. She wasn't under the influence of any type of drugs or alcohol when these freak-offs were occurring, or when these encounters were occurring, I should say. What was interesting about Daniel Phillip when he had actually walked into the courtroom, something that a lot of us in the press kind of noticed, is he walked inside with his sunglasses on, which, for the most part, we haven't seen many witnesses do that. I mean, only 3 have taken the stand so far, but it was definitely an interesting moment. I mean, earlier this morning, it wasn't raining just yet, but, it wasn't exactly sunny too. So we were kind of like, why is he wearing sunglasses? And even when he got off the witness stand, he put the sunglasses right back on, just walked out of the courtroom. But another interesting point, Jesse, that they were kind of talking about today was talking about an incident, or not even an incident per se, but talking about a moment in December of 2023. And this is when Xavier Donaldson brought up Daniel's friend named Malia. And essentially, they were questioned, or Daniel Phillip was questioned about when he saw Cassie outside of the Dream Hotel here in downtown New York City. Apparently, Daniel Phillip had told this friend Malia about his relationship, and I put that in quotations even here in my notes, about his relationship with Cassie. Said that Cassie asked to call him later on to meet her. The defense says it was for another experience, and Phillip said, no, that wasn't necessarily the case. The defense said, so Cassie called for a one-on-one after she wasn't with Diddy any longer. And so then another interesting point that was brought up was just that Daniel Phillip had met with federal prosecutors in March of just this year, so just a couple months back, and they were talking about essentially kind of what one thing I kind of remember from Daniel Phillip's testimony is just kind of the way he would talk about Cassie per se. Like, for example, yesterday he had said that Cassie was one of the most beautiful women that he had ever seen. He had also said, had Cassie given him a chance, that he would absolutely date her. So it seems like he kind of had more on his end, more of a platonic feeling towards Cassie, especially kind of in that need to kind of protect her. So, Phillip said that, Daniel Phillip, excuse me, said that he wasn't necessarily jealous seeing Diddy have sex with Cassie, but he had allegedly told federal prosecutors that he was in October 7th of 2024. And this is where a sidebar had happened. And so after the sidebar was over, Daniel Phillip was questioned again, would he feel jealous because he had liked Cassie romantically? And so Daniel Phillip said he didn't recall saying that to prosecutors. And so when the redirect happened, Maureen Comey just really kind of had to redirect all of the cross-examination, all of the back and forth, kind of back to a focus. So she asked, about Diddy directing and why that wasn't brought up necessarily. Said that Diddy had directed Cassie to give him, oral, rub baby oil on him. They were asked, Daniel Phillip was asked about money, given more money for sex, $3,800 more than he would be if he were to come over to dance, or for time, I should say. He said he was paid anywhere between $700 to $5,000, $6,000 just for sex. And then essentially he was paid $0 if he didn't have sex with Cassie or in the room with Diddy. And so, during the redirect, Daniel Phillip said Cassie normally didn't respond to his text messages. But then there was a point that, after Diddy had beat Cassie, that Diddy was actually trying to get Cassie to continue to perform sexually with Daniel Phillip, and said that Daniel couldn't get an erection after kind of hearing the slaps going on in a nearby room. He said he essentially just wanted to hug her because he could tell that she was shaking and that she was afraid, and that pretty much reaffirmed that Diddy beat Cassie essentially, and even called her the B word. And so then they were talking under the recross. He was asked again about, text messages that he said he didn't receive responses to. And then
so the male escort fell in love with Cassie?
Of the exhibits were showing that, Cassie had responded very casually to some of those messages. So some of those were pretty much the big takeaways from Daniel Phillip's recross, redirect, recross. And so, and then that essentially wrapped him up as a witness. He was off the stand probably within an hour of when court had began, and he put on his shades and just walked out of the courtroom. It seemed like Diddy was kind of, obviously he was listening at every single witness who had taken the stand thus far in this case, but definitely Diddy had his eyes on Daniel Phillip, was paying very close attention to what he said, again, participating very much so in his defense by jotting notes down, handing them off to his attorney, listening to Xavier Donaldson do the cross-examination and even the recross as well too. And so definitely Diddy's eyes were very laser focused on this witness and the following witness too, who we all know to be Cassie Ventura.
Yeah, it seems to me the defense was really trying to hone in the fact, well, who paid you, $700, $6,000 an episode? Well, it was Cassandra Ventura. She was the one in control. She was the one who was enjoying this. She was a partner in what was going on and not a victim. That there was this text message, I think, that was sent to that you told them both that you love them. So it wasn't anything nefarious that was going on, that she was being forced into this criminal sexual arrangement, but she was a willing participant. and it just might be a kinky, sexy episode, but not a crime. So I kind of understand where the defense was going by ultimately cross-examining him. But now we got to talk about Cassandra Ventura. So before we even get into the substance of what she had to say, and there is a lot to get there, she walks in, okay? Tell us what the environment was like with her walking in, and how did she appear? And did she ever look at Sean Combs, either when she got on the stand, during her testimony? Did he ever look at her? Paint the picture of what that was like before we even get into the substance of what she had to say.
Yeah, it was definitely a moment a lot of us were kind of expecting. We were all thinking it was going to be like a pin drop moment, but really it kind of happened within the blink of an eye of her coming in to the courtroom. So essentially, she walks inside the courtroom. She's wearing a long brown dress. She is very, very visibly pregnant, to a point where I thought, oh my goodness, just stand by, everyone. It was, that was very apparent. That was very obvious. So she kind of walked in. It's not like she was smiling necessarily or looking at familiar faces that she may have known in her past, i.e. Diddy's family, and waving at them. That was not the case at all. She kept laser focused. She walked just straight to the witness stand. She had kind of escorts take her over there. But she didn't look in Diddy's direction from what I could see. I didn't see her once kind of look over or give him an eye or a look or anything like that. She just walked immediately to the witness stand. She raised her right hand. She swore the oath to testify. And even for the duration of the trial, or excuse me, the duration of her testimony today, for the most part, I didn't even catch her glimpsing at the defense table. For the most part, she kept laser focused on Emily Johnson as Emily Johnson was asking her questions. Probably the only people outside of Emily Johnson and possibly even her husband that she was eyeing in the courtroom was probably little moments at the jury, when they had came in back from, their breaks or a quick bathroom break and that type of sort. And it was just a very kind of faint smile. And so for the most part, from what I could see of her, it didn't seem like she kind of paid Diddy any type of mind, but you can only guess how she's feeling being inside that courtroom. Us as reporters, we're all jotting down these notes. Diddy's family's inside that courtroom listening to all of this testimony. Then you have Cassie's side of the family, who's inside that courtroom as well, that even including her husband, Alex, as well as her brother. I believe her mother was inside that courtroom as well as Cassie's attorney, Doug Woodder. So for the most part, I didn't see her, even when she had exited the courtroom, even looking at the defense's side or anything like that. And so she was there to do what she had needed to do, and that was to testify. To me, I wasn't catching that she was there really for a reunion or any type of sorts. But it's interesting because, according to the defense, the last time Diddy and Cassie were in a room together or in the same vicinity as each other was Kim Porter's memorial back in 2018. That's what the defense said in their opening statement yesterday. And so, this was a moment that I'm sure she had waited for a long time, probably didn't want to be very close to giving birth or anything like that while she's taking the stand. But, it's been a long time since Diddy and Cassie were in the same room with each other, let alone the same vicinity as each other.
Right. So when she started testifying, my understanding, explained that when she first met Sean Combs and began a romantic relationship with him, it was good at first, right? I mean, talk to us about the beginning of the relationship and how she described him, because I think that's important in order to understand the context, and also maybe a potentially to be used by the prosecution and potential win for the defense.
Yeah. So, the questioning was done by Emily Johnson. One of the first few questions that Emily Johnson had asked Cassie was, how old are you? So Cassie is now 38 years old. So I say that just in the context of when she met Diddy. She met Diddy around 2005. That was 20 years ago. The prosecution and even the defense had said that she was just 19 years old when she had met Diddy. She had said she had signed with Bad Boy in 2006, and she had signed actually a 10-album deal. She said she knew Diddy and remembered him. Well, I say Diddy, but she referred to him as Sean throughout her entire testimony. But she knew who she calls Sean as somebody who was larger than life, but didn't necessarily know too much about him personally. So, the prosecution was asking, when did she release her album? That was in August of 2006. But then surprisingly, no more albums came after that. Remember, she signed a 10-album deal, yet it was only one album that was released, as well as a mixtape too. But she said, after she had signed with Bad Boy, their relationship was pretty platonic, and this is when we in the gallery, as well as the jurors too, were shown photos of her and Sean together. Another photo from the 2006 BET Awards with Cassie, Kim Porter, Sean Combs, and then another friend, all just kind of posing together on what looked like to be a red carpet. She was asked about Kim Porter specifically because at this time, Kim Porter and Diddy were still technically in a relationship. They were obviously co-parenting together because they had kids together at this point. And so when asked about Kim Porter, Cassie referred to her as Diddy's or Sean Combs' ex, as well as the mother of his children. She said, even after signing with Bad Boy and stuff like that she had seen Sean a number of times, or a few times at the clubs. They were shown, the jury was shown another photo of a potential witness, that being Carrie Morgan, who was Cassie's best friend around that time frame, Diddy, Cassie, and then another friend on the couch. And this was pretty important. This was from her 21st birthday. And so this was something that was definitely talked about while the prosecution was kind of establishing the foundation between Sean Combs and Cassie. And so during this birthday trip this weekend, that Diddy had actually kissed her in the bathroom. And that's pretty important because at the time they weren't romantically involved. At this time, Diddy essentially just was an executive at the record label that she had worked at, obviously that being the one he had founded, being Bad Boy Records. And so she said after he had kissed her, it was actually kind of confusing. She said she was pretty young because, again, at that time she was just 21 years old. She said she was a new artist who didn't really know the lay of the land. And she said that she was pretty naive around that time. And she said even after the kiss that she had ran out of the bathroom. And so after the two had kissed on her 21st birthday, they had seen each other a couple of times afterwards, and then even went to visit Sean Combs at the Trump Hotel after she was invited by him specifically. She said that, for the most part, Diddy called all the shots of her music career. So when she went over to the hotel, she really thought she was going to be talking about music, talking about, her recordings and that sort. So she said she was nervous to visit Diddy at the hotels, but just was essentially excited to talk about her career and where everything was going. But then, that's not what happened in this hotel visit. She said essentially that she was introduced to the concept of oral sex while at this hotel. She said that, Sean Combs had given her oral, and that it made her, that he kind of made her feel crazy for not reciprocating that. And so, she didn't do that because she said she was in a relationship at the time with somebody else. She said she felt sneaky, but she essentially just wanted to be around him because he was exciting, he was entertaining. And she said that, it made her feel kind of special because not everybody was getting that time with Sean Combs. And even just think about that time frame. This was Puffy, this was Puff Daddy, this was Diddy, this was somebody who was a big name. And so from her perspective, I can kind of see a little bit why she was a little excited to kind of go over there again under the guise that she was going to be talking about music. And that's not essentially what had happened. And then the prosecution talked about this trip to Miami. And this trip was also pretty important because this was a trip that they had taken. Carrie Morgan, Cassie's best friend at the time, was there. Dallas Austin, who was a music producer, was there as well too. And she referred to Dallas Austin as a friend. You'll remember Dallas Austin because he was on that People and Places list that the jurors were given during jury selection process. And so she thought initially that she was going to Miami for work. And a flyer was even made about her doing kind of a club appearance, a booking appearance down there. But instead, she was having sexual intercourse with Sean Combs on a boat. She said even later that night, that's when she started. She took a drug, and that was what they called a blue dolphin pill, was essentially ecstasy. She said she was given the ecstasy actually by Sean Combs, and that she had never taken a drug intentionally before. And she said intentionally because she said she unintentionally accidentally drank a drug from somebody else some other time, but that was the first time she intentionally did it. And again, that was kind of her first introduction to it. She said ecstasy kind of made her feel euphoric. And then us in the gallery, as well as the jurors, we saw photos of Diddy and Cassie on that boat together. And that's the boat where the two first had engaged in sexual intercourse for the first time. And then even after that trip, that's kind of where everything changed. She said essentially that they spent a lot of time together and that she became one of Diddy's girlfriends. Now, at the time, she initially really just thought the two were monogamous because they spent so much time together. And she said even afterwards, you know, they didn't go public for years after that because publicly he was still dating Kim Porter. Even after this trip, she broke ties with her old management. And she said post-Miami trip, that's when she started falling in love with Sean Combs. She said she called her, or she referred to herself as his shadow because that's how often the two were together. But she said that Sean Combs was her first adult relationship. We were later shown an exhibit. It was the photo of the two of them at a strip club in New York City together in Halloween of 2007. And we were shown photos of Sean Combs and Cassie in the back of a car together at their relationship. So you could really kind of see from her perspective, from what I saw from the exhibit, her just kind of smiling, her being what I perceived to be excited to be there again. She looks the same, right? But she was a little younger back then. And so after this trip, she said she was still enamored by Sean Combs, you know, at first. But she said over time, that's when she started to kind of experience a different side of him. And for one example that she had used, it was like the physical abuse and even the controlling nature of Diddy, the ways that she had looked, who she was speaking to and talking to. Essentially, that Diddy would call her every single day, all day, every day. It was either through text, calls, and then later on FaceTime, because back then, you know, we didn't necessarily have FaceTime, because you have to remember, just in the context of everything, that this, you know, their relationship was a little bit a while ago, nearly almost 20 years ago, the start of it, I should say. And so, you know, if there were times that she didn't answer the phone call, he would call her repeatedly. If she didn't answer the phone call, his staff would call her, and the staff included the assistants, the security. Said the staff would even go so far as to locate her in person if she didn't answer her phone. And she said that Sean Combs's or Diddy's moods impact her very greatly. She said she said when she would be abused, it wasn't really about her. She said there was physical and psychological abuse. She said even if she didn't smile the right way that he had wanted her to, he would say things along the lines of "watch your face, watch your mouth," and essentially Diddy would tell her kind of who to be. And then that's how we kind of slowly started getting into more just of the relationship between Cassie and even Diddy's staff members, including his security team, who was around 24/7. You know, Cassie named off names like D-Rock, Uncle Paulie, Bounds, Malik. When the assistants were named, it was important names like Christina Coram, David James, Neil Dominic. And so that's when we started to kind of get a glimpse a little bit into just her relationship with Diddy's staff too.
And a lot of things to break down there, right? I'm actually going to do a sidebar episode where I'm going to take Ventura's testimony and say how it actually matches up to the elements of the crimes that Diddy's charged with. But, you know, talking about staff members, that definitely goes to racketeering, right? This common enterprise, allegedly using staff members and associates and chiefs of staff to further his criminal activity, to keep tabs on Cassandra Ventura. When you talk about controlling the way she looks and what she does, control, power dynamics, that goes to the overall theme of force, fraud, coercion, of sex trafficking. Very, very important. Again, I'm going to do a sidebar on that tomorrow. We have to talk now about the freak-offs, okay? Because that was a central theme of her testimony, all right? So the freak-offs make up the racketeering charge. The freak-offs make up the sex trafficking charge. I read about it. I think that this was incredibly graphic but important testimony. So if we're saying that she was doing things against her will and that she was being forced to do it, Elizabeth, I'm going to turn it over to you. What did she say about the freak-offs? What did she say about these sexual episodes?
Yeah, it was definitely a lot of graphic details that were a lot to kind of handle. When I was sitting in that courtroom, there were just moments where I was just like, oh my goodness, can we go for a break? Something like that. But again, I kind of have to commend Cassie for, you know, being so calm, cool, and collected. There were emotional moments that she kind of teared up a little bit, and I'll get into that in just a sec. But as far as, you know, these freak offs, she said there was even prep time she had to prep for these essentially. She said that, Sean Combs would make her get her nails done and they had to be a certain way. And that included white nails or French tips for the freak offs. She had said that there was even discussion possibly about, breast implants as well too, that he had made comments about her physical shape, her working out, keeping up appearances. She had to get tan, she had to get waxed. So there was a lot of physical preparation when it came to just how she would appear, because according to her, Diddy controlled every aspect of it, from the way she looked, the way she talked, how she even performed within these sessions or freak offs, because there's even a difference right there where a session was just inside the freak off, where it was just like one moment that, this encounter would happen. Then they would take a break, go on to another moment. And that might not even be the entire freak off. She said sometimes they would do 3 or 4 sessions just in one freak off. And so the imagery it was really just a lot. And so essentially, she described it at first as, that Diddy just wanted this to kind of be a fantasy. He wanted to watch, and that Diddy introduced her to this concept of swinging. And so there was a point where, they were talking about it initially as just kind of voyeurism, where Diddy kind of would just watch. She said she was pretty shocked that he was kind of interested in this, but she said she essentially just didn't want to upset him. She said as far as the freak offs go, that she was introduced to them in the first 6 months to a year of their relationship that they were doing this together. The other person would normally be a stranger, that being an escort or a male dancer. She was just 22 years old when she was first introduced to it, so very, very young. She said she agreed to even do it because she just wanted to make him happy. She asked why she agreed. She was asked why would she agree to do it, and Cassie at that moment said, "Great question." And so the first freak off, she said, happened at his LA home in the bedroom. She said they kind of referred to this person as the first escort because she didn't remember his name, thought that he was a stripper from Vegas, knew that the escort was paid to have intercourse with her. She said during her first freak off, she took ecstasy, she drank alcohol even before it had started, something that she had even talked about in her civil claim against Combs that was later settled. They showed a photo to the gallery just of this particular first escort, because we didn't even know his name, but it was a black man. He had dreads, he had an earring in his left ear. It looked kind of like a driver's license photo, but even throughout the course of her testimony today, he was just referred to as the first escort. She said that Sean Combs would tell her to wear masks, and she wore heels during this. That Diddy kind of directed everything, including the lighting, putting the oil on the escort, and vice versa. So essentially, Cassie and this escort would rub baby oil on each other. And so, I was talking before about kind of the difference between the sessions and the freak offs. So again, those sessions were just kind of a portion of the freak offs. But these escorts were paid thousands of dollars to do this. She said that she had to, in order to kind of do these freak offs, she would essentially have to get high just so that way she didn't feel much. But she said that it made her feel dirty. She said, that right after her first one, Diddy soon proposed another freak off, and she felt like she couldn't say no because she didn't want to make him upset, said that he would get angry and his moods would change if she told him no. And then after the first freak off that she had did, they started to become more frequent. And by frequent, she said that they would occur pretty much weekly, and those went on for years. She said her final freak off wasn't until 2017, 2018, which is still relatively close to this time period, kind of right now. She said for the most part, she didn't get much sleep during these freak offs, but drugs kept help her stay awake, such as cocaine, such as Molly, MDMA, or ecstasy as well too, all that were given by Sean Combs. She said Sean Combs would decide, he would be the one to decide when these freak offs would end. And she said that it was impossible essentially to remember the amount of freak offs that she even did, because she was pretty much doing a whole bunch of drugs, and they were so frequent for the most part. And she said that she felt, humiliated, and that she was all that this was all that she was good for. And this was an important part in the testimony, because this was the moment that she started tearing up. She pretty much had testified that she was being objectified during this, that Diddy would get so mad that if she didn't want to participate in this, that his eyes would go black. That's how mad he would get. And she said the only part that she actually liked about the freak off was just the time that she had spent with Sean Combs, and this being this one-on-one time that the two had had with each other. She said that she had wanted Sean to know that the FOs made her, or the freak offs had made her feel worthless. But essentially that Diddy dismissed her feelings. Diddy called her predictable. There was this one exhibit, an email exhibit that was shown where Cassie, her nickname under this email chain was BG standing for baby girl, and Diddy was referred to as Pop Pop, which is kind of disturbing in itself because he was named Pop Pop after her grandfather, and she thought it was weird and disrespectful. But from Diddy's point of view, this was something that he had allegedly wanted. And so the subject of this email was, "I really need to F." And this message from Pop Pop to baby girl said, "So who you gonna F? Want to call someone?" And so this email from was around 2010. And so the response was that she wanted to F him and said, "Are you crazy?" Because essentially when Diddy was receiving these messages, he just essentially assumed it was going to be for a freak off. That means other people were going to be involved. Whereas from Cassie's point of view, she was kind of making the argument that she just wanted to spend time with her partner at the time, her boyfriend at the time. And so there was kind of a back and forth just about that Cassie had wanted to talk to Diddy about something, and that Diddy had called her predictable because that she didn't want to, assuming that she didn't want to participate in these freak offs. And essentially that she said that from her standpoint, she didn't want Diddy to think that she didn't want to do it anymore, even though she didn't want to do it anymore, but essentially did it to make him happy. But even throughout these freak offs, they were talking about disguised identity, that Diddy would wear a hat, he covered his face, he wore a mask. Cassie would even wear a mask, kind of one of those masquerade masks. She would wear a wig, she would wear see-through nets, she would wear very tall heels. She kind of even made the comparison to them being kind of like stripper heels. And essentially those were the disguise portion. The only time that they had kind of taken off the mask, taken off the disguises, was when they felt comfortable enough to do it with an escort. Because you have to remember, around this time, they were a little worried that one of these escorts could possibly be a cop. One of these escorts could possibly be somebody who would go and tell the entire world that they had done something with, Sean Combs and Cassie Ventura at the time. And so she was talking about how these freak offs happen a lot of different places, including all of Diddy's homes, except his home at Maple. Freak offs happened in her home, except her Studio City home. They had freak offs in New York, in Miami, in Los Angeles, in Atlanta, and Turks and Caicos, in Vegas. And she named the hotels that she could remember doing these freak offs at, because it wasn't just at Diddy's homes. It wasn't just at Cassie's homes. They were in hotels as well too. And just how the staff would kind of help provide things that they had needed for these freak offs, such as condoms, such as Johnson & Johnson's baby oil, such as candles, such as lube, such as Astroglide. And that essentially all the participants use baby oil. This seems like a very big preference that Diddy had kind of had. And I know a lot of people kind of make jokes about it, but for the most part, it does seem like a prevalent thing that was very prominent in these freak offs, and that a lot of bottles of baby oil were used, to the point she said 10 bottles were used in probably one freak off, which is a lot of baby oil if you really think about it. She said, the Astro Glide was used as lube, as freak off, something that she had even talked about in her civil suit against Combs. She said when they had run out of these types of supplies, that the staff would get more, the staff being the assistants would get more, or they would ask the bell desk for more at Diddy's direction. The candles were always lit. There were about 6 to 10 candles inside these rooms. There was even a point that she had mentioned that candle wax would be poured onto her. It would be poured onto Diddy. She said studio lights were later used and these freak offs, and that they were red and purple and blue. Then we were shown a photo with Diddy. It looked like he was kind of laying on something. According to Cassie, had a handful of cash in his hand that we couldn't see through this exhibit photo. But he was kind of laying in a red room. And so she said the freak off rooms were particularly warm, according to her. And then this was kind of one of the more, disturbing points that were talked about through her testimony about them using extra linen not to soil the sheets in these hotel rooms. Why? Because there were points where blood and urine were going to be soiled into these fabrics, essentially. She said that she was even expected to have freak-offs while she was on her menstrual cycle, that Diddy and an escort would urinate on her, and that she didn't want to be urinated on. She said it was a turn on for Combs, but for herself, she felt humiliated going through this, said it was overwhelming. She said at one point she began even choking on the urine. And again, these are just very, very hard things to kind of listen to, and me even repeating them, I'm just kind of a little just unwell, just because it's really a lot, Jesse. I'm not going to even lie to you. And she was saying I didn't want anyone to urinate on me, and she said this didn't really necessarily happen often, but it was often enough for her. And these were just very humiliating things, and you could tell that she was very soft spoken throughout her testimony. So it was probably very uncomfortable for her to kind of talk about this, one in an open courtroom, one in front of Diddy, as well as even her husband and her brother and her mother, who were all inside that courtroom. And she was very soft spoken throughout this, but essentially that the staff would clean up the aftermath of these events. They would be charged thousands of dollars just for the damage that were done to it. She said half the time she said she was high on drugs during these while she was being urinated on. She said she didn't say no because she thought it was obvious that she didn't want to even do this. So it was a lot of graphic details, a lot of things. And surprisingly, I didn't see much of the jury kind of shake when this kind of testimony was going on. They were very much so kind of looking at Cassie very intently, very much listening to her. I would think that, maybe somebody would get emotional or anything like that. But from what I could see, because my view was also very limited, I will also say that. But from what I could see, the jury didn't really flinch to this very disturbing testimony, this very hard testimony to listen to. But it seemed like they were just kind of absorbing everything that was being testified to. But from their perspective, I didn't see much of a reaction to this. But from us in the gallery, I know a lot of people were just kind of like, whew, this is a lot today.
And the urination might not even be the most disgusting point. I'll tell everybody, we're not going to repeat it here. Something that was reported about Sean Combs' nipples. You want to check it out? Go check it out on your own. It's pretty disgusting, to say the least. Yeah, I was going to ask you about the jury, not grimacing, not wincing, not looking like they wanted to throw up from half these details. But look, from a legal point of view, it does become a question, right? How on earth could someone consent to all this? 36, 48, 72 hours of these sexcapades, right? Where, the urination and Astroglide and the baby oil. Then it also becomes the question for the defense. And I'm sure when they have an opportunity to cross-examine her, why didn't you leave? Did you speak up loud enough? Why would you allow this to happen? Why didn't you go to the police? These are going to be questions that I'm sure are going to come up. But I do have to ask you now also, I think it was towards the end of the testimony, she was asked about the infamous 2016 videotape, right, of her purportedly being beat up by Sean Combs. It was the first piece of evidence the jury heard or saw yesterday, right? Because we know a security guard testified to it, authenticated it. What did she say about that incident in particular?
So the government obviously had talked about this Intercontinental Hotel video, one in their opening statement, two with the first witness on the stand. And Cassie herself, when she got on the stand today, confirmed that she was leaving a freak off when this violent encounter had happened at the Intercontinental Hotel in Los Angeles. She said this happened while she was trying to leave a freak off. We were shown a text from that day, just kind of earlier. It was between Diddy and Cassie. Diddy had asked her, so what are you going to do so I can plan the rest of my night? Cassie had responded, baby, I want to FO so bad, but I don't want to F myself up. What am I to do? And essentially she had talked about this because she didn't want to to mess up her body by partying, as she kind of sometimes referred to these freak-offs as. She said that she didn't want to ruin a movie premiere that she was going to later on, because she never had an opportunity to kind of enjoy things that she had worked hard for, and didn't want to kind of mess herself up by being, because she had pointed to that she would be on a lot of drugs when she would be doing these freak-offs. But she said from her standpoint that she wanted to kind of have a clear mind when she were to go to this movie premiere. But essentially, she did participate in this, and she said that even before she kind of exited that room, that Sean had given her a black eye, and this was in between one of the freak off sessions. So again, that's that portion of the freak offs, not the entire thing or anything like that. And she said at a point where Diddy was distracted, she just left, and then she said everything just happened so quickly. Next thing she knew, she was thrown on the ground. So even from our perspective, we thought, the first punch was taken from outside of the hotel room. According to her perspective, that first punch was happening inside that hotel room. And so she ran out of the door from what we had previously seen. She said from her standpoint, next thing she knew, she was thrown to the ground. The prosecution asked, why did she run out without some shoes? Because when we had first seen the video, even from the CNN portion, which was sped up, we had seen her kind of putting on her shoes. She was just in her socks from what it looked like, but she was putting on her shoes inside that elevator kind of hallway. She said she doesn't remember what Sean had told her exactly while he was hitting her. The government then played the video for her, and I was surprised at how she kept her composure just kind of while on the stand. But from her standpoint, this was just one of many physical violent encounters that she had with Diddy while the two were together. So she confirmed that it was she and Diddy inside in that video. Said that Diddy had thrown her to the ground multiple times before. She said she stayed on the ground because we all remember kind of after that first hit that she had just kind of stayed there, just laid there on the ground. Just the image in my head right now, again, just it's a lot of heavy stuff today. She said she stayed on the ground because it was the safest place to be. She said that she didn't fight back when Diddy had hit her. She said she picked up a hotel phone while Diddy had held her purse and overnight bag. So essentially, she had said that she didn't fight back when Diddy had hit her. That kind of the last few moments of this testimony from today, that she had picked up a hotel phone while Diddy had held her purse and overnight bag. And that was kind of the stopping point when it came to the government kind of showing her this video. So I expect when they return tomorrow, this will definitely be something that will be asked about again, and probably going into more depth about it again, because Emily Johnson said that she expects for Cassie Ventura to stay on the stand for pretty much half of the next day as well too. So that's halfway through Wednesday, and then they expect her cross to last up until Thursday at the minimum. And so Cassie Ventura still has a long amount of time to still be on the stand, still definitely hours worth. But, from her perspective, it was definitely just kind of hard to kind of listen to her testimony, mainly because, I said this yesterday, Jesse, that from the most part, we had heard these allegations, through attorney statements, through court filings and that sort. But to hear these things from her herself, to see her on the witness stand, to see her keep her composure, but even still at some points kind of had to just break emotionally, because it's a lot of things and a lot of hard things to recall. It's a lot of hard things for us to listen to. And so from her perspective, I can only imagine kind of what she's going through, on top of being very down the line in her third trimester. And there were even points she was kind of rubbing her belly, maybe that was something that kind of helped calm her down or just gave her some type of comfort. But, today was a very hard day just to kind of listen to this testimony. And yet we still have more hours to go with it as well, too.
Yeah. And look, that cross-examination will take quite some time to get through. I imagine tomorrow it's going to be discussion of the videotapes, these purported videotapes of sexual encounters, freak-offs. Will the gallery actually see them or not? We shall see. It probably, if I had to guess, it's going to be a situation where only the jury will be able to see and hear that, as well as the witness. And they'll be very careful in how they question her about this, because I think the risk of this getting out and being published is pretty high. And I think that they want to minimize that risk as much as possible. This is a difficult day, Elizabeth. I know it's not easy to hear this, but really, really appreciate you spending the time in the courtroom, capturing everything as possible, relaying to our audience in as much detail as possible, because unfortunately there are no cameras, there is no audio. We have the transcripts, but it's not the same. And to hear you describe her testimony, the first time that Cassandra Ventura made a substantial response to everything that has been going on, to me, it read almost verbatim her complaint that she filed against Sean Combs in November of 2023. And to hear her talk about the infamous CNN video, this is a pivotal day in this case, in what is an 8-week trial. And thank you so much for relaying to us all those details. Elizabeth Milner. Right now, Cassandra Ventura has taken the stand. Now, unfortunately, in this case, in a federal case, there are no cameras in the courtroom. There is no audio in the courtroom. But we are going to do our best to report to you in real time what is happening with her testimony and analyzing her testimony in real time. And we're going to also be taking your questions about this testimony, about the case in general, as it progresses. So if you have a question, submit it on YouTube. We will answer it here on air. I'm not going to do it alone. I have with me here in studio, Rich Schoenstein, trial attorney. It's great to see you, Rich. Thanks for jumping here so quickly. Really appreciate it.
Glad to be here. Big day in this trial.
This is a big day because she is victim number one in this case. I think it would be fair to say we probably wouldn't have criminal charges if it wasn't for Cassandra Ventura filing her lawsuit in November of 2023. We all know that the videotape of her purportedly being beaten by Sean Combs in 2016 changed the course of this entire legal saga. It came up a lot yesterday. She came up a lot yesterday. And now her testifying for the prosecution, I think a fair argument is this case either rises or falls with her testimony. So what has she testified to so far? Well, first of all, she's quite pregnant. She's about 8.5 months, 9 months pregnant. She's 38 years old. She explained that she was with Sean Combs for 10 years. We're talking about a 17-year age difference. She admitted that during the course of their relationship, he introduced her to certain sex acts. She asked to describe the relationship she had with him. Quote, there were violent arguments that would usually result in some sort of physical abuse, dragging, different things of that nature. Again, why is this important? He's charged with sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion. He's charged with racketeering conspiracy, a criminal enterprise, underlying crimes like sex trafficking, kidnapping, arson, bribery, obstruction, and also transporting sex workers for purposes of prostitution. She went on to say that he would stomp her in the head if she was down. There was frequent violence. She would have black eyes. She would have bruises. She was asked by the prosecution to describe what a freak off was. And she said, quote, it basically entails the hiring of an escort and setting up this experience so that I could perform for Sean. It involved Combs being able to watch with me, the other person, and actually direct us on what we were doing. Eventually, it became a job for me, pretty much. And by the way, this comes after the testimony of a male performer who says he was hired by Cassandra Ventura and Sean Combs to have sex with Cassie in front of Sean Combs. She described how their relationship was quite complex, talking about these freak-offs. When she was first introduced to them, she says, I was confused, nervous, but also loved him very much. She explained how Sean Combs ultimately controlled a lot of her life. She talked about blackmail materials, so videos that Combs purportedly shot of her during these sexual encounters. She was concerned that they would be published, they would be released. Quote, he had many resources to do that. She was shown the 2016 video of that hallway attack, as I mentioned. She confirmed it was after a freak-off, which is important because while the defense would say this is an unfortunate incident of domestic violence and domestic violence is not sex trafficking, she has confirmed that this was after a freak-off. This was in furtherance of sex trafficking. She says she was afraid that if she said no to him, it would make him angry. So again, we're going to get more of her testimony in real time. So far, Rich, from what I've said, what are you taking away from her testimony?
Well, obviously, this is a horrendous relationship and she suffered a lot. I think the defense is arguing, in essence, that she was a consensual, willing participant in this relationship. It was a 10-year relationship. It had ups and downs. And the defense is arguing that some of the things she argues now she was forced to do, she did willingly and perhaps even enjoyed at the time. So that's what we're getting at. But this is really shocking stuff for a jury to have to hear all of this. And I think see some of it is coming up.
Don't you think that there is a potential problem for the prosecution? Because we heard it. It was funny. We have a question from TDB. Jesse, does the male dancer's testimony about Cassie contradict the prosecution's opening statement? Now, he had testified that he thought he heard Sean Combs slapping her, that there were instances where he saw him dragging her. But at the same time, he was getting paid by her. He was texting her. She was participating in these freak-offs. You wonder, this case is a thin line. Was it coercion or not? Was she a victim or partner in this? Do you think when you hear the testimony of that male dancer and you hear her testimony now, it'll be difficult for the jury to believe that everything was coerced and against her will?
I don't think the jury is going to believe that everything was coerced and against her will at the time, but it doesn't have to. There's a massive power imbalance here. So even if she willingly participated for parts of this relationship, he has all of the power and he's using it. And the one thing you mentioned, I wrote down, blackmail video. That stuff's really important to the case, right? This is carrot and stick territory, but he kept allegedly things like these videos to keep people in line. And the allegation here is if she sort of got a little bit antsy about how the relationship was going, he would threaten to release videos that would destroy any chance of her having a career.
The defense would say the only person that was in possession of the videos was Cassandra Ventura. That's a point that they made yesterday.
Yeah, that's an evidentiary point. I don't know the answer to that.
Let me ask you this. We have a question from Lauren, who, by the way, has this cute little emoji, smiley face with the hearts. I like it. It's nice. I have a question. Do you think now that the prosecution has played their ace with Cassie, that they have more damning evidence to come?
I would expect so, because when you're prosecuting a case like this, you want to start strong. And I think some of the idea of putting her on in day 2 of this trial is to start strong. They put on a little corroborating testimony first, right, from this dancer, escort, whatever you want to call him, and now they have her, the security guard, and they get to show the video, that horrible video, and now she testifies. But it can't be the prosecution's plan to try this case that now they're just going to wind their way through some other inconsequential witnesses. I mean, they have 2 more victims, as I understand it.
Well, let's talk about this. The practical reality is, A, they need to get her on the stand before she gives birth. Okay.
Well, that's true too. That's true. Good point.
Yeah, because victim 3 is nowhere to be found. So they may have to make sure that victim 1 is still available. But also, I agree that they started very strong with corroborating evidence before they brought her on, because what happened? When she filed her lawsuit in November of 2023, made these wild allegations, I think people said, how do we know this is true or not? As soon as that video was released by CNN, the whole game changed, because people not only believed that particular incident in the complaint, they believed overall all the allegations that she made. And it seems the prosecution is doing just that. Now, it's interesting thinking about this. By the way, I'm going to give more updates about her testimony. So right now, Ventura said, I thought we were monogamous. The prosecutor asked, was it made public? No, I was his artist, also his family, his children, meaning their relationship wasn't public yet. Who was linked to him publicly? Kim Porter. Miss Ventura responds, how did Sean treat you at this time? We had fun. So a lot of this is talking about the beginnings of their relationship. And she has to concede some points, right? She can't just say, it was a disaster at the very beginning. I hated him from the very beginning. I was under a distress from the very beginning. There has to be an aspect to it where she explains, no, I started this relationship. I was young. I was excited, but then it devolved, right? In order to be credible on the stand about the story, I think.
I agree with that. And also to acknowledge that there were benefits to her of being in this relationship. It would, at least in theory, help her career. It would get her to meet people that she otherwise wouldn't have been able to meet. So all of that is true. There's nothing wrong with her conceding that, because none of that justifies being dragged down a hallway and beaten.
Exactly. And by the way, we jumped on here on air immediately as soon as we found out that Cassandra Ventura was officially taking the stand. And one thing that makes Law and Crime a little bit different than other outlets like that is our viewers. Not only do we value our viewers, but we are making content right now purely for our viewers on YouTube. We want to give you the most up-to-date information about this case in real time. And again, we are the only channel, the only news organization that is producing content for you specifically. We value that. YouTube is where the most hard cutting edge news is coming from, and we want to get it out to you as quickly as possible. So thank you so much to our supporters. We are going to continue to take your questions for a while now, because she's going to be on the stand. So let's keep it going. Again, thank you to our YouTube audience. Jane, are there any more witnesses to Cassie getting attacked by Diddy apart from the bodyguard? I mean, I don't know. I would imagine so.
Yeah, I don't know either. There's a videotape, so that's kind of a witness. But yes, I would imagine there are other witnesses who are going to talk about the relationship and probably talk about some of the physical stuff.
Well, they mentioned chiefs of staff. They mentioned a chef. They mentioned one of the questions from the defense yesterday was, how is this a conspiracy, right? For a conspiracy, you need two or more people to agree. Yeah. Who are the people that coordinated and facilitated this racketeering and sex trafficking operation are not criminally charged?
So I see two major hurdles for the prosecution in this case. One is what we've been talking about. They have to get past the idea that this is consensual behavior by other people who are behaving in a questionable fashion. They have to get past that. The second bigger hurdle to me is turning an abuse case into a racketeering case, right? Because yes, they have to prove RICO is very challenging. You have to prove a RICO enterprise. You have to prove a pattern of racketeering activity. You have to prove multiple predicate acts that are violations of separate federal laws. It is hard to sustain a RICO case. We've seen some other cases where people have tried. That's going to be a major hurdle here. The fact that he had this 10-year relationship, and even if it's arguably true, he took advantage of her, he treated her horribly, he beat her, he did all these terrible things to her. That's not racketeering.
I say that the prosecution spent so much time yesterday in their opening statement trying to explain to this jury why it's a crime. Because it's not a garden variety trafficking or racketeering case. And I think the more they have to explain it, that's a problem for them. I think it's a weakness in their case, personally. Now we have an update from court. Prosecutor asked Cassandra Ventura, what was his lifestyle like? Ventura responds, he had all these assistants. He could get things done. He traveled quite a bit. And then apparently she's shown a photo, and she says, this is Sean and I at a strip club in New York, like 2007, 2008, Halloween. How did Sean Combs' moods vary? Day to day. Now, look, he is charged with specific crimes that John Smith on the street can't meet. There is an argument here, very powerful, had all these businesses, different resources, different employees. He would be in the position to be able to carry out a sex trafficking or racketeering operation. That's what makes him unique, though.
Sure. But is that what he's doing? Is he running an entertainment and fashion industry, or is he running essentially a criminal organization?
By the way, we have a poll up right now. You can participate in it. Do you think Cassie Ventura was a victim or partner in this? Ready for this? 82%. Well, this doesn't make sense. 82% say yes. I don't know if that's yes to, I think we need clarification. 82% say victim or partner. We'll get a clarification on that.
By the way,
right now.
But that's my answer to that question.
Oh, okay. 82% say victim. 82% say victim. Maybe based on we're reporting on the testimony right now.
Yeah. I mean, I think she is a victim if the allegations are true, but also she is involved in some of the criminal act. I mean, she's getting those prostitutes, right? She's making payments to them, allegedly. She's having them come. So she's involved in some of the alleged criminal activity. And that's an interesting point. that wouldn't just apply to her. Other people in his orbit might be some combination of victim and co-conspirator.
But you know what? That video changes everything, because the argument would be, what do you think happens if she says no?
Yeah.
What do you think happens if she says, I'm not in the mood for a freak off tonight. I'm not going to pay the dancer. That's what's going to happen. That video is arguably the most important piece of evidence because it sets the stage when we're talking about coercion or force. Question from Angelina. How old was Cassie when they first started dating? I think she was 19 years old. So you're talking about a 17-year age difference. That's important. I think that's an important factor if you're talking about power and control, right?
Yeah, absolutely. The fact that he's older and obviously has much more power anyway.
Sherry Williams asks, what kind of time is Diddy facing if he's found guilty? Do you want me to? I have it listed unless you want me to answer that one.
I would say life in prison, but you can tell me specifically.
So this is exactly what he would be facing. So if he's convicted of one count of racketeering conspiracy, I pulled this up because I figured people might be curious. If he is convicted of racketeering conspiracy, the top charge, that is a maximum sentence of life in prison. You know what the minimum is for that? Well, okay, so that's life in prison. Maximum sentence for sex trafficking, life in prison. You know what the minimum is for sex trafficking? 15 years in prison. And then the transportation for purposes of prostitution carries a maximum sentence of 10 years in prison. Rich, I have to tell you, I don't know about racketeering. I don't know about sex trafficking if he's going to be convicted of those. I am fairly confident he's going to be convicted of allegedly transporting sex workers with the intent that they engage in prostitution. Their argument, as far as I understood yesterday, their defense yesterday was he hired people for their time and experience.
Let me tell you something. If he gets out of this trial only convicted of transporting for prostitution, that is a defense victory. They would take that in a heartbeat, I bet.
Because I think if he is convicted of that, he might not get 10 years. He might get, a shorter amount and time served, his time already in the MDC. I don't know, but it wouldn't be life in prison. Wouldn't it be 15 years?
Yeah, he might not get full 10 years. He might not get the hardest prison term, the hardest prison life, right? He would get out. He would still have a life. He would still have his enterprise. So I think that would actually be a defense victory, all things considered.
So we have an update from court. I think she's describing what the alleged abuse was like. She talks about anger, zoning out. She was asked, how did this impact you? She says, greatly. The next thing I knew, I was getting hit in the face. She also apparently talks about psychological abuse. He'd tell me to watch my mouth, change my face. So, I do wonder that has a strong impact, because there's another case that we're covering right now. It's the Alexander brothers, and they're being charged with sex trafficking. And the argument you hear from defense attorneys is this is a very novel way to charge individuals, that if you're talking about romantic relationships or girlfriends or flings, and you're taking them on trips, you're paying for their meals, you're buying them gifts, maybe you're promising things, romantic gestures. Are we now in a position where romantic relationships are just on the line of sex trafficking, or where does it differ?
Well, here he is allegedly bringing in prostitutes to participate in these freak-offs and paying them for sexual services. So that, to me, would clearly be sex trafficking if it's true. It's not just about the girlfriend. It's not just about the relationship. It's about these sex workers that he is moving about.
We have a question from Trune. What about male victims? Seems like this case is solely based on women victims.
This case appears to be based on women victims. I mean, I've heard speculation too about male victims. I don't know where that stands.
Well, there's lawsuits. There's a lot of lawsuits that have been filed by male victims. And I wonder, do you think that was intentional for the prosecution to not include those in this case? I mean, why weren't minor victims? Let me say this. He has been accused in lawsuits of abusing minors. Okay. Allegations, accusations. Okay. Never been criminally charged. If you're the prosecution and you want a slam dunk case against Sean Combs and you want justice for all of the alleged federal crimes he committed, You know, the problem with the minor victim for a defendant like that is there's no consent defense anymore. Do you think it's like we want to be as specific as possible with these charges? We don't want to make this case overly broad. The bigger it becomes, the more risk it'll fall down. Thoughts?
I don't buy that. I think the prosecution wanted as many victims as it could get. But I think the prosecution had to scrutinize every potential victim to, first of all, are they going to show up, right? We have an issue with one of the three, whether or not they're going to show up. So they had to scrutinize that. And also, how are their claims? How are they going to be on cross-examination? How is it going to play? They wanted multiple victims. The only way this case is what it is because there are multiple victims. This is not a RICO case if it's just what he did to one person, no matter how horrible it was. That doesn't get you to racketeering. So he needs them. They need the multiple victims.
And that brings up a good question I have. If you read the indictment, let me rephrase that. There's been many superseding indictments.
Yeah.
It says alleged victims, right? Alleged victim 1, 2, 3, 4. But then it says victims including, like victims, many victims, including alleged victim 1, 2, 3, 4. Does that mean we're going to hear other people who are not enumerated as one of the alleged victims, but are just other victims in the case? Because I don't.
It could be. They could bring people who are other victims in the case, especially the way the case is pled, the way the case is being tried. Now, they would have had to tell the defense by now who those potential witnesses are. And I assume, well, I don't know if we would have heard about it in this particular. Usually you would have heard about it. You would see it on the docket. But I don't know.
So talking about this alleged criminal enterprise and how, based on the opening statement from yesterday, he didn't just have staff who were helping him commit the crimes, but also covering them up. Just now, an update from court. Prosecutor asked Cassie Ventura, how would he keep tabs on you? To which she apparently responds, he didn't live far apart. We didn't live far apart. He'd send security to come find me or a trusted assistant. Like who? David James, Christina Coram, who we all know has been a central figure in this case. Maybe not the criminal case, but she's come up in lawsuits before. The prosecutor asks her, was your relationship exclusive? Ventura replies, no. If she's naming names like David James or Christina Coram, do they have to testify, you think?
I don't think they have to testify, but I wouldn't be surprised if they did. I would think this is all planned out, that she's going to indicate some people and then the prosecution is going to bring them in later in the trial to verify, right? One thing you really want to do with a witness like this, the defense is going to say that she's embellishing. They might say she's lying, but that's going to be a little hard to do with that video, right? They can't just say she's a liar, but they're going to say she's exaggerating, she's embellishing, they're painting it a certain way because of the case. So you have to bring in these corroborating witnesses and whatever other corroborating evidence you have to verify what it is she's saying. So it would be very useful, for example, if she says, yes, David James came around to check on me on behalf of Mr. Combs, and then David James takes the stand and says, yes, I did that.
Yeah.
That would be helpful.
Well, and yesterday they talked about the defense, her lawsuit in 2023, her attorney being in the courtroom, that she has an incentive, a monetary incentive to fabricate this situation. Got a question from Daniela. By the way, we're taking your questions on YouTube about this case, about Cassandra Ventura's testimony that's happening in real time. We're trying to update you as quickly as possible about what she says in that courtroom. No cameras in the courtroom, no audio in the courtroom. So this is the best we can do to bring you her testimony in real time. Question from Daniela, 3984, talking about the video. What version of the hotel video was played in the courtroom? Was it the sped up version? Now, I believe it was portions of the surveillance video, not the CNN video, and cell phone video that was taken by the security guard who testified, Israel Flores. He had apparently taken a cell phone video of the surveillance footage to show his wife, but that became a big pretrial issue about what the jury was going to see.
Yeah. And by the way, that story was a little odd. I took a video of it to show my wife. For what purpose? I mean, that was a little strange.
Well, you're not going to believe this happened, even though he didn't report it to the police.
I think it's going to be difficult. I think the defense would like you to believe that video has been doctored somehow, but I think they're going to have trouble sustaining that.
Hey, would you like a civil law question?
Yes, please.
Yes, this is our litigator here. Question from Teodora Bodurova. Can Cassie sue Diddy again if Diddy's found guilty as charged?
So Cassie, if you remember, sued Diddy. And that was the first thing we really heard about this. That was before the video. There was this blockbuster lawsuit in November of 2023 that really put these allegations out there. And she was very detailed. In fact, the front page of her lawsuit had a trigger warning on it. It was so detailed. That case was settled the next day. And I would have to think that the settlement included an agreement that she wouldn't sue him again for anything. Usually, if you're going to settle like that and pay the kind of money she would have gotten paid for settling that lawsuit, you get what is known as a general release. And a general release means you don't sue me for anything that happened. Now, here's one caveat. Up to the date of this agreement. Up to the date of this agreement. So then if you the next day punch me in the face, I have a new lawsuit against you.
Yeah.
Right? But at least up to the agreement, she can't go back now and say, I want more money.
Well, for the same conduct, right? I mean, if he comes out and he did something to her or allegedly did something to her after the agreement was signed.
Yeah. Presumably they got it. And it also, like, you have to make sure the release covers all of his companies, all of these other individuals who were involved. It has to be a general release of everybody. You don't want to leave any wiggle room to have a lawsuit.
We have a follow-up question to this from Fads. So why did he settle if he was innocent?
Well, I mean, people settle all the time when they think they're not liable. People, like, with the thing that really surprised me when that case was filed is that the case was filed. Typically in a case like that, you draft the complaint and you send it to the defendant and you say, dear sir, please pay me a boatload of money or I'm going to file this publicly in court. And if there's any merit to it, or if just for publicity reasons, the defendant decides to negotiate and pay, and it never goes to court. So it fascinated me at the time that she actually filed that publicly and he settled it the next day. That unfortunately was pretty telling, that he didn't put up any fight on the lawsuit. He didn't even want to litigate it. He didn't even want to go to discovery. He wanted to settle it immediately.
And if he would have settled it before she filed it, I think we would have been in a very different position than we are today.
Oh, I totally agree, because that lawsuit, I think, is what sets this ship sailing.
I agree. Okay, update from court. Prosecutor asks Cassandra Ventura, did you see other men? Cassandra Ventura responds, yes. Prosecutor asks, did Sean see other women? Ventura responds, yes. He said, I am Puff Daddy. I was insanely jealous. Did you move to LA with him? Yes. He wanted to be close to his kids who were there. Goes to a theme from yesterday where the defense owned up and said, yeah, he's jealous. He's angry. He's violent. He engaged in domestic violence. That 2016 video is indefensible. When you hear her testify like that, does it help the defense? Does it help the prosecution? Because the defense got in front of it. They didn't say he's a saint.
Well, it helps the prosecution, but the defense did the correct thing in opening statement, and they had to do it. They didn't have any choice. I mean, the defense couldn't walk into this trial and say he's the victim of a conspiracy to invent evidence against him. That was never going to work. The thing's on video, and there's lots of other evidence. So they were going to have to say he is not a delightful guy. You people on the jury probably aren't going to like things that he did. He did engage in things we consider domestic violence, but this is a racketeering case. And I liked that about the opening statement. They made that very clear. You're going to have to judge the crimes alleged here, not whether you like him or dislike him.
It was back in 2023 that the world first heard the term Diddy freak-offs from a lawsuit that Cassie filed. Cassie accused Diddy of forcing her to participate in these freak-off parties where she was forced to hook up with male escorts while Diddy watched it all go down. At first, the world refused to believe it, calling Cassie a liar who just wanted money from Diddy. But people started looking at her differently when the very next day, Diddy settled with Cassie for millions of dollars. This seemed to prove that she wasn't lying about these wild freak-off parties, especially after months later, security footage of one of the hotels where the freak-offs were held that leaked, showing Cassie trying to escape a Diddy freak-off session and being stopped by Diddy. This is when it became clear to the world that who they thought Diddy was isn't who he really is behind the scenes. Even with this information out there, no one knew exactly what these freak-off parties were. They could only imagine what it could be. Now, since the trial has commenced, we finally have been told exactly what went on at these freak-offs. If you saw my previous videos covering this, you would know that I have been exposing the truth about the freak-off since the beginning. Go back to my Diddy videos from when all of this started. I told you guys exactly what these freak-offs were. They weren't parties. They were sex magic rituals. Now, Cassie basically has confirmed this during the trial, as she has gone into detail about what exactly Diddy was doing during those rituals. Hey guys, I hope all is well. Welcome back to The Truth Is, where I drop new videos exposing the truth weekly. In today's episode, we will be talking about the Diddy trial and Cassie revealing the truth about the freak-offs. Let's get right into it. Right now, we are at the start of the trial of the decade. The biggest figure in hip-hop is being judged by the courts for his horrific behavior within the music industry. Since 2023, people have started to see Diddy differently. But after the details revealed during the trial, the world will see him for what he really is, a sick individual who's into some dark things. Recently, the trial has commenced, and the first witness called to the stand is no other than Cassie. Cassie is one of the most important witnesses in this trial, as she was the woman who started this all. If it wasn't for suing Diddy back in 2023, the world will still be worshiping that fallen man. While on the trial, Cassie has been painting a picture of what exactly she went through with Diddy, giving us a vivid description of the disturbing freak-offs. According to Cassie, she met Diddy when she was fairly young at the age of 19 and began dating him not long after. She was an inspiring artist, and Diddy took a liking to her, signing her to his Bad Boy record label for a 10-album deal. The more time they spent together working on music, the closer they became, until she fell in love with him. By the time she was 22, Diddy asked her if she would be willing to participate in his freak-offs. Cassie claimed she was initially caught off guard and shocked, but agreed to do them because she loved Diddy and wanted to keep him happy. Cassie then explained how these freak-offs would play out. They would invite male escorts or dancers to hotels they would book all over the country. They would order multiple men sometimes to show up. When the male escorts would show up, he would be greeted by Diddy and Cassie wearing a disguise. Cassie would wear a mask while Diddy would cover his face with a bandana. Then Diddy would sit in a corner while Cassie and the male worker engaged in intimate acts and watch while playing with his little Diddy, directing the entire session like if he were an adult film director. He would instruct them to continue until the escort would completely finish in or on Cassie. Cassie and Diddy would then immediately run into another room, leaving the escorts alone for a moment. Cassie claimed that when they were in the other room after finishing with the escort, Diddy would do the most disturbing thing about all of this. This is worse than anything else that has been reported, and that says a lot. According to Cassie, Diddy would instruct her to remove the male fluid from inside of her and then rub it on Diddy's chest area. Again, Cassie claims Diddy would want the escort's fluid rubbed on his chest after Cassie finished hooking up with him. This was seriously disturbing, but groundbreaking information that confirms everything I've been exposing about Diddy for years now. Now you may be wondering, why the heck would Diddy want another man's fluid rubbed on his chest? Is it because he's gay and that's just some weird kink he's into? No, not at all. This is darker and deeper than the mainstream is trying to make it appear. Diddy is a sex magician occultist. He is into an occult practice called sex magic. He is a part of the occult sex religion called Thelema. What Cassie described wasn't her fulfilling Diddy's strange kinks. It was describing a sex magic ritual. In Thelema, exactly what Diddy has Cassie doing in these freak-offs is what goes on inside of these Thelema lodges. Groups of sex magicians engage in magical rites where a man and a woman engage in intimate activities together while others watch. Those a part of the Thelema religion believe that there's magic in intimacy, magic that they need to harness to become spiritually enlightened. By watching another couple engage in these activities, they are absorbing that energy. That's what Diddy was doing the whole entire time. Everyone you see at the very top in Hollywood engages in these rituals. Now, the reason Diddy wanted the male fluid rubbed on his chest, it's because in sex magic, they believe the male fluid is magical. They call it the life essence. They believe that the energy needs to be harnessed. The reason they do these rituals is to put themselves in a trance-like state where they can activate their higher selves. Diddy was participating in these sex rituals with Cassie. Now, Diddy has been telling the world he's a part of the Thelema religion for a while now. Every time you see him taking pictures doing this hand gesture, that is a Thelema hand gesture done during sex magic rituals. On top of this, in the religion Thelema, they claim that love is the law, love under will, which is basically the credo of the organization. Now, you should remember that Diddy changed his name to Love. This is a direct reference to Thelema. Diddy is referring to love is the law, love under will. It's why he released an entire album called the Love Album. All of it was Diddy secretly showing the world that he was an occultist into sex magic. These parties weren't just about fulfilling Diddy's disturbing desires. They were rituals done with a specific purpose. According to Cassie, Diddy was having her do this multiple times a week for several years. Cassie claims she wasn't able to quit because Diddy would film these rituals and then use them against her, claiming that he would release them if she stopped. The reason occultists participate in these sex rituals is because they believe it'll help them enter a higher spiritual realm that puts them in contact with higher spiritual entities. They believe these rituals allow them to communicate with these entities who grant them forbidden knowledge. These occultists will then use this forbidden knowledge to achieve whatever they want. Many inventors, artists, and actors all do these same sex rituals in order to contact these deities and use them for their work. Artists will use these deities to write his songs. Inventors will use these rituals to come up with the answers to their inventions. Actors do these rituals to allow the entities to take over them and use them for their acting roles. This is the secret of the highest degree in Masonry. This is what is taught in the 33rd degree. How to utilize sex magic to be able to communicate with these entities. Many people think Cassie was complicit in all of this because she wanted money. Part of this is true. Cassie wanted to be a successful artist. She saw Diddy as the man who could make that happen. But it appears Diddy had other plans for her, using her to perform these sex magic rituals. And it's the same thing that happens to many of these upcoming celebrities that enter the industry. They think that these executives want to help them make it to the next level, when in reality, they're either trying to initiate them or use them for their rituals. From what it appears, Cassie was just like many other celebrities who got brought into that life when they were trying to make it big. She was willing to do anything to make it, and that's what Diddy had her doing for her spot in the industry. I believe Diddy also did these rituals with people like J-Lo, and I believe she's continuing to use these rituals in her life till today. J-Lo's ex-husband exposed her for using witchcraft and performing rituals for her success. Jennifer was married to Ojani back in 1998, right before she was with Diddy. Ojani even claims that Jennifer cheated on him with Diddy. More importantly, Ojani exposed something about Jennifer that most people don't know, that she's into black magic and witchcraft. According to Ojani, J-Lo is deep into Santeria, which is similar to voodoo. He claims that J-Lo was extremely serious about Santeria, and he was as well at one point. Ojani claims that he and Jennifer had a black magic godmother, that J-Lo even performed a Santeria ritual to be granted the Selena movie role, the movie role that changed her life. J-Lo started dating Ojani back in the mid-90s and ended up marrying him in 1998. He was actually her first husband and was with her before she became a massive star. He was exposed to Santeria after he started dating J-Lo. He claimed that after they broke up, because J-Lo was cheating on him with Diddy, he and J-Lo went to see their Santeria spiritual leader, who he called the Godmother. This is where he claims that J-Lo participated in sacrifices to the gods in order to cleanse herself of Diddy. According to Ojani, he saw J-Lo do a blood rebirth ritual where she bathed in chicken blood until she was covered in it from head to toe. He then claims that she was washed off with holy water and patted with herbs. This is what I believe he was referring to. All of these big celebrities are into this. Thelema is the secret religion of Hollywood. Thelema at its core is just Gnosticism, alchemy, and Luciferianism, ancient occult practices that these occultists use to become God. Understand that Diddy isn't the only one doing this. Kanye is also into these same practices. Kanye is also into sex magic, and that's why we see him doing the things he does today. Kanye and Diddy were close, and it's because they both participated in these disturbing rituals, and so did Jay-Z. Aleister Crowley is seen as a god in Hollywood. He's the one that taught Hollywood about sex magic. All of these artists you see sending love and admiration to Crowley are into sex magic. That also goes for Ab Soul. Ab Soul made an entire album about Crowley. calling it Do What Thou Wilt.
But the name of the album was the saying "Do What Thou Wilt," which brought me to Aleister Crowley. Correct. And you know what Alistair, you know who Aleister Crowley is, right? And he was a magician, a poet, and he was also linked to Satanism. Yeah, in many ways. And so, what made you decide? What does that mean to you? Made you decide to name your project that?
Well, you know what? You're the first one to bring up the Satanism, and I'm so glad that you did, because you know it's all church with me.
Yeah.
Know that. So, Do What Thou Wilt immediately sounds like free will. Aleister Crowley has been influential throughout music and entertainment and ideology and philosophy. The album is based on that quote, "Do What Thou Wilt," which is in the book, one of his books, the Book of the Law. And love is the law. Love is the only law. I respect that, because my main thing is ain't nothing wrong with a righteous man, correct?
Yeah.
Yep. So I really admire this guy.
Is this gonna be the breakthrough joint?
Well, I mean, but
see what he's saying is, are you signing your name on the dotted line? Are you signing your soul away? No, yeah, that's what he's saying.
Are you in the Illuminati?
I mean, what you think?
I know, but
as you can see, this is what Crowley was really about. Crowley taught his followers about all of these rituals, literally not only telling people to use man fluid like Diddy is doing, but also using blood in the same way. Crowley even instructed his followers to even eat man fluid, as it would further their ecstasy. It's not a coincidence that Diddy changed his name to Love and dropped the Love album right before this all happened. He was out here doing these rituals the entire time. It's all connected to sex magic. Remember Jonathan Odie? He was just brought up in this trial and confirmed to be one of the freak-off escorts. He claimed Diddy, Khaled, and Ross were all gay and a part of the Bolé secret society.
Diddy and Ross, which are good buddies, okay? They're gay. Who? Both. Diddy and Ross. And Khaled. They're all gay. Yeah, he's part of what's called the Bolé. The Bolé is a branch of the Illuminati. Okay.
All of these men are a part of Thelema. All of them participate in these sick, disturbing rituals. This is the truth about Hollywood the media isn't going to tell you. This is why I advise you guys to stop idolizing these people. Look at what these people are really up to behind the scenes. It's disgusting. I'm going to keep my eyes on this trial and continue to provide you guys with the important information. Things that the media are going to try to cover up because they work for the elite who participate in these sick rituals. Well, that's it for this video. I want to thank you all for watching.
Kofi, follow me.